across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Rather bleary-eyed, I think, for most of us. Look, I know there are folk of you, you don't like the football, but come on. Come on, if you did either stay up or, like me, did the getting up early option for that match, what an absolute stonker for the boys, I have to say. Start getting hopeful. You start getting hopeful, don't you, guys? Anyway, it was a magnificent night last night. Well, this morning, early hours this morning for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that World Cup match. I know we're not TalkSport. They're down there looking even more bleary-eyed than us here at Talk. But come on, it's all the nation's talking about, isn't it? But there's plenty of politics to come as well. And so basically, if you are listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is wonderful to have your company. If you missed anything on the show, this is not like you can, the BBC doing that extra, 7:15 report, but you can go to my YouTube page at the Julie Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. As I say, we are going to be discussing that magnificent England 3-2 win over Mexico in the early hours of this morning. Bellingham scoring twice, Harry Kane scoring a penalty, sending England into the quarter-finals. But we're against Norway, not Brazil, this Saturday. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Do give us a call. Also, Reform have insisted that no rules have been broken after allegations that Nigel Farage allegedly failed to declare financial support from convicted fraudster, Posh George, as he's known, George Cottrell, in the run-up to becoming an MP in 2024. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, not very impressed with other NATO countries in Europe. He is going to be naming and shaming the countries that are not stepping up on defence. That's going to include Keir Starmer, when he attends the NATO summit in Turkey as of tomorrow. He wants defence spending, none of this 2.7% nonsense, none of this 2.8%, not even 3 or 3.5%, which we're nowhere near getting to. He wants 5% ASAP. And he's right, isn't he? We'll talk about that. And, of course, Andy Burnham. Still waiting for the same level of Andy Burnham scrutiny as we're getting of Nigel Farage, given that Nigel Farage could be the next Prime Minister, whenever the next election is, but Andy Burnham almost certainly will be the next Prime Minister on the 20th of July. Well, the US Vice President J.D. Vance says he hopes Burnham can fix Britain after years of failed leadership. Well, good luck with that, JD. Some of us are rather less hopeful. Anyway, I do want to hear from you. Feel free, as you know, to call in on any of the topics we're talking about. Would quite like to hear your reaction to the England win last night. Are you going to work me? Maybe you're asleep right now. Have you called in sick? Did the kids go to school? Have you given them a day off? What's your kids' school been like about it? Have you just completely just said the whole day's a write-off? Did you stay up late? You called in sick? I want to hear your stories, but I also want to hear your thoughts on well, all of the focus on Nigel Farage and his finances. Is this a lot of stuff that's being dredged up by journalists who don't necessarily like reform, as Nigel Farage is complaining, or is it legitimate scrutiny? Frankly, maybe we need a little bit more legitimate scrutiny of the other parties, some of us might say. And also, they've got a big policing report out today as well, saying an awful lot of things that some of us have been saying for quite some time. Anyway, all of that, do get in touch. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at TalkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me today, although I don't know how delighted he is, in this swelteringly hot studio after very little sleep. Henry Hill, political editor of The Critic. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've got a little added issue now. You watched the highlights this morning after a day out at Silverstone yesterday.
Exactly. It's been it was a wonderful weekend.
Do you remember any of it?
I remember bits of it. There was
on a scale of 1 to 100. Just how rough do you feel this morning?
Oh, we're looking at the sort of mid-70s. It was hospitality at Silverstone.
Oh, one of those journos never pay for their own drinks, cheap sods.
It was wonderful. And then, as you say, made sure to at least see the highlights. I didn't have time to see the whole game. But it was an extraordinary game.
It really was. I mean, I think the Telegraph was saying this is like the best since 1966. OK, let's calm it down a bit. It genuinely was a great match. I'm so pleased. My husband and I went for the option of we spent far too many years getting up early for work. I can't be doing with it. I simply can't be doing with this staying up till 4 in the morning malarkey. I can get up at 4 in the morning. So woke up around then. basically agreed with my husband I could wake him at 5:30
Right,
to watch.
right.
So we worked out if there wasn't extra time, we were going to be a bit in trouble if there was extra time. We were going to watch it, but you can fast forward through all the hydration breaks and half time. Very efficient way of watching it, actually. But it was absolutely excruciating, and there may have been some neighbours woken slightly unnecessarily early when Jude Bellingham put 2 away within 2 minutes. Yeah, sorry about that, neighbours. But I mean, my main thing was not looking at a phone. No TV. Left a TV on a channel that doesn't have news,
Yeah.
you know, so we could go all recorded. But the main thing was can't do anything. Texted my producer this morning saying, I know you've expected a response by now. I can't look at I can't look at WhatsApps because I can see everyone's in the WhatsApp group on the World Cup and I can't see any of those messages and I can't read an email either because I don't want to know the result. So I actually managed to watch it hours later as live without knowing the result, which was really incredible.
That is actually that's an impressive level of organisation. Yeah.
You met me.
Yeah, exactly. I eventually got in last night, and I was like, right, okay, how long have I got until the match? It's like it's not long enough for me to have a nap.
Yeah, I know, and also, yeah,
then
a lot of the team did the napping and then getting up. And, yeah.
Right, but I was like, it's not really long enough for me to do that and then watch it live. So I was like, okay, do I go to bed and then? But I'm just not a morning person, so I thought I can't.
First world problems.
Exactly. I was like, I need to come on and chat for 3 hours, which means I need to be vaguely presentable. Yeah, so I did watch the highlights. It was a shame not to have got to watch it as live, but I mean, even so, whenever we win, you always hear people saying, "Oh, what an extraordinary match!" And you're like, "Okay, right, fine." It really was, though. It really was like a phenomenal game.
Really was, and to add to the joy, the icing on the cake is that. Extraordinarily, I mean, who would have seen this one coming? Brazil getting knocked out by Norway. And so our next match is 10 p.m. Saturday night, quarter-finals of the World Cup. OK, we've done this before, I get that, but it's against Norway.
Brazil Slayers.
Aren't we likely to, I think we're likely to hit France, aren't we, in the semis?
Oh, God, that would be
in which case, well, good luck, everybody. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to hope too much. But really interesting, what do you make of this little scandal going on? And it is. Basically, Donald Trump personally called the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, who gave him a FIFA Peace Prize, because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, which he should have got for Gaza, to be fair, to review a one-match ban handed to the US striker Folarin, I can't pronounce, Balogun. And he absolutely deserved his red card, so therefore had a one-match ban, so absolutely crucial player. And basically, they've just reviewed it and decided, no, he hasn't got a red card. I mean, come on.
I mean, FIFA is a rancid organisation.
It's just so outrageous.
Had this reputation for a long time about, what countries are awarded the World Cup and so on. I do think that this has crossed the line because maybe I'm wrong.
This is interfering with actual play.
This is interfering with the actual game. And to my knowledge, and I don't follow football as closely as some, so maybe I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, they haven't really done that before. They've done stuff about where gets the cup and all the rest of it. They've put in these absurd water breaks so that the American advertisers can have more space. But they've never been interfering with the decisions of referees, and that is a line in the sand, I think.
Here's my thing. I've said for many, many years, I mean, at some point, all of the first world teams, let's be honest, are going to just have to... Who are the ones, by the way, who provide all the people who the advertisers want? They just have to say, no, we're done, and we're setting up a rival FIFA. We're just not willing to go along with this madness anymore. And, the idea that, I don't know, Haiti get the same vote that Germany or England do in what happens in the World Cup. I mean, oh come on, let's just stop this absolute nonsense. But there you are. What do you expect? And what would you expect from Donald Trump? I mean, just ridiculous. Also, Donald Trump in the news. He's going to be arriving in Ankara for the NATO summit being hosted in Turkey, and he's basically done yet one of his another threats to NATO. And I'm with him all the way on this. I've been very unhappy with him lately on a lot of issues. But basically, he said, and US officials have been saying this, many allies lagging behind their pledge to spend 5% of GDP on the military by 2035. We're up to 2.7% by 2029, and even a load of that is just fiddling with the figures. It's a load of nonsense, and that's with a 15 billion quid uplift, none of which is actually accounted for in the latest budget. When Andy Burnham takes over on the 20th of July, he's going to have to wrestle with that. But the president's very clear. You know, you've got Poland, you've got the Baltic states, you've got Finland. They are, you know, doing it properly because they understand the threat from Russia. Germany, massive uplift. That said, from a very low base. But we are way too slow. And he's making it really clear there are going to be basically rewards and punishments for the EU nation or the European nations who don't step up. And I think he's quite right.
I mean, this is one of the elements of Donald Trump's programme that I've always thought, you know, he's had a point on, right, which is that basically the way that Europe has worked since the end of the Cold War is that we have hidden behind the American security umbrella, cut our own defence to the bone, ploughed all of that money into welfare, and then lectured America about not having a welfare state.
Totally.
While America spends sort of 4-point-something%.
Well, no, you know, while taxpayers in Wisconsin and Ohio and California and Florida and while they pay for our defence.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's outrageous.
And also, and their sons, you know, are in uniform being our defence, right? Because we don't have enough people. So that's perfectly sensible. I mean, can you imagine trying to get 5% of I mean, I don't even think... Top of my head, I wouldn't have said America did 5%. I thought America did 4%, but I might be wrong.
But it doesn't matter because their military is it the next 5 all put together?
Oh yeah. America, if these things compound, right? America's been doing for decades, and. You're right about the 2.7% figure. One, it includes pensions.
Yeah.
It didn't include pensions before George Osborne, but that's about 10% of the MOD budget. So that's taking all that off as well.
I mean, as much as we feel strongly about veterans getting good pensions and things, that doesn't actually help us in fighting force.
You should pay them their pensions. They should not count towards the defence figure, right, which they didn't used to. And so there's no real prospect of us getting to 3. It's one of the, you know, sometimes you watch politicians now and you just wonder how on earth can they go out and say that with a straight face. Because Sir Keir Starmer has said that he is putting Britain on a war footing. Yeah, that was his language.
He was genuinely laughable.
And nothing, right? Nothing at all in terms of making any single one of our armed forces deployable.
Yeah. Right? I mean, again, we cannot defend ourselves. No. The defence chiefs are clear about it. The former defence secretary, all the former defence secretaries are clear about it. It's just outrageous. And interestingly, in the last, the last hour or so, news has emerged that a Russian patrol aircraft repeatedly approached the UK's carrier strike group in the Arctic last week, dropped a large number of sonobuoys, so sort of basically spy devices nearby, according to the Ministry of Defence. 2 F-35 fighter jets warned off the Russian reconnaissance plane on July the 2nd. And basically, the Russian aircraft were dropping these small sonar buoys, which are used for anti-submarine warfare and underwater acoustic research. I mean, they're taking the mick. They are testing our responses. And our response is, ooh, don't do that again. Don't do that again. At some point, there's going to be an interception that involves a plane being downed. And at that point, this little tepid war we're in, because we are in a war. People really, we're not at war with Russia. We are at war with Russia. They are at war with us anyway. They've chosen that. We're going to be in a hot war.
And you know what? The thing is, the Russians can read the British papers, right? Yeah. Even before, you don't even need a spy network. Yeah,
they know before we know.
Russian intelligence is fairly good, but you don't even need the Russian intelligence network because you can just read British generals saying we can't deploy 5,000 troops.
There you go.
The army is about 70,000 men. We can't deploy 5,000.
And the worse they're doing in Ukraine, and they are definitely on the back foot in Ukraine now, the more Putin's going to need his win. It's very worrying. I'd love to hear your response to this, actually, particularly Donald Trump. I know a lot of you are Trump fans, but, I criticise him. My rule, I criticise him when he's in the wrong, and I praise him when he's in the right. I haven't got Trump derangement syndrome or Trump sort of, love syndrome, which I think both are crazy. But he's absolutely 100% right on this, and he was right in his first term, and everyone sat and laughed at him. I still love watching that little press conference when he was saying about the amount people were spending in NATO and all the sort of Europeans and all the well-to-do and the mainstream media were laughing at him. Yeah, he was right. You should be listening to him. Let's also talk about Nigel Farage, very much in the news. Papers all weekend, everything's all about Nigel Farage in his finances. He's currently being investigated for that £5 million donation from Christopher Harborne, his crypto billionaire in Thailand, British guy, but nevertheless, personal gift. What was it? Personal gift? Was it for security? Has he spent it? No, none of my business. Nigel Farage told me last time he was on. Now we've got this issues about him not declaring any benefits provided by, as he's known, Posh George Cottrell. I thought it was Gorgeous George, for he was used to be known as. Is that a different one? But basically, a sort of aristocratic, convicted fraudster Not years ago. Since he's been mates with Nigel Farage in the sort of the campaigning for Brexit days, George Cottrell, big figure around Westminster, all seen drinking in the local pubs and the like. He basically has been supplying support. Some security. There were 3 social media staff. Nigel Farage has stayed at his rented home near Westminster. Now, Robert Jenrick for Reform yesterday was out on the BBC trying to talk about a reform policy, barely got a mention. Basically, he said, look, it was purely personal capacity. He said he's done nothing wrong, but also just basically saying, look, these are just politically motivated attacks. It's a rehashed story. The journalist who wrote this, Gabriel Pogren of the Sunday Times, big friend of the show, I have to say, he has in the past tweeted something that it does appear that he has a big dislike for Nigel Farage, but it's got to be clear, he's investigations editor at the Sunday Times. He reports without fear or favour. I'm sorry, I'm not just saying that because we're in the same group as them. He goes after everybody. He thinks, but Nigel Reform says there's no wrongdoing. Same with Christopher Harborne. What do you think about this? Because this was when he wasn't an MP.
So it was when he wasn't an MP. The rules, again, as we've discussed on the previous case, the rules do cover stuff that happens before you're an MP, precisely because otherwise that would be the most obvious loophole on earth, right?
Yep. Get everything before you're an MP.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I do understand that Nigel, as far as anyone can tell, was basically not planning to come back into politics. And then Rishi Sunak basically baited him and called the election, and he ended up back in. And a lot of these arrangements were probably for some kind of post-frontline life. Yep. Nonetheless, they are extraordinarily damaging. The decisions not to... if he'd registered these, there'd have been a wave of spluttering and huffing from the usual suspects 2 years ago, and then nothing. Because, again, as far as we can tell, if these had been... apart from not being declared, there's no evidence that there's any wrongdoing here.
But also, people are saying, look, why did you have staff for your social media if you weren't in politics? He was working for GB News.
Right. Yeah, you see, exactly. Like,
I mean, he was a big figure. He was the biggest show on a television station. And of course, he needed social media people.
Right, and also he's building a personal brand, right? Yeah. Again, you've got to think about it. If Nigel Farage was planning to leave frontline politics, he needs to put together the kind of portfolio career that you do in that situation, and that usually needs staff and social media support.
And why can't he make some money from selling gold?
I mean, the gold...
I don't have an issue with that.
Exactly. I mean, I think
why do they want to pay him a load of money? Because he's a big figure, and he will appeal to the sort of people they want to sell to. Yeah. Simple.
That one, again, absolutely fine. I think that he has made a massive mistake by not declaring
I agree. Absolutely. Same with Harborne.
Yeah. Because, again...
he wasn't happy when I was telling him about that.
A couple of years ago, he was very popular, had a very good general election result. It would have been over in a week.
Is the mainstream media going to be going for him? I have to say, I think it's a fair point to say... not a criticism of the Sunday Times at all, but it's fair criticism to say. I would love them to show remotely the same amount of scrutiny about the Labour Party.
Well, they got Lord Ali, right? I mean, I think when we say stuff like that Andy Burnham is not getting the level of scrutiny he deserves.
I mean, on
for
policies,
his insane policy, right? I think that is perfect. That is a perfectly fair...
You found has he got a policy?
Well, he has vague suggestions of policies. No, he doesn't have firm policies. But no, that's completely fair. But I think that when we talk about any suggestion that the mainstream media is quote-unquote going for Farage on this kind of thing, like, yeah, they are.
But he's giving them an open goal.
Exactly. Is anyone suggesting that there are stories like this about, say, a Tory or a Labour politician that they're ignoring? I don't think so. No. As you say, I think if Gabriel had this on Kemi Badenoch, it would be... he would print it.
Or on Andy Burnham. I do think that's absolutely true, 100%. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Give us a call. Is this a witch hunt against Nigel Farage? Has he dug his own grave on this? A lot of talk about how will this sort of stuff force him out of politics? What do you think? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Does it not make any difference to you whatsoever? Couldn't care less. Utterly irrelevant. Love to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Up next, we're not going to be taking your calls up next. We're taking them a little bit later in this hour because we are going to be talking to the sports writer at the Telegraph, Jim White, about what he made of last night's game and our chances in the quarter-final on Saturday night. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 10:23 is the time. We'll get your calls a little bit later in this next half hour, I promise you. Right now, let's talk to Jim White, sports writer at The Telegraph, who joins us to talk about, I don't know, some football match overnight. Good morning to you, Jim.
Good morning, Julia. I have got a voice, unlike poor old Harry Kane.
Oh, gosh,
and my voice is not squeaking. I'm still alive.
To be fair, I mean, let's face it, he's a world-class footballer. He's not an unattractive man. That voice, though, a little bit of a question mark. Completely. I imagine that stadium was so loud in Mexico City. That's probably why he lost it. But can I ask, did you stay up to watch it? Did you do what I did and get up early without knowing the score? What did you do?
I stayed up to watch it, Julia.
You're a pro. That's why. You're a pro.
Whatever the delays, it was worth it. It was absolutely magnificent. Yeah. I tell you what, I don't know how you felt watching it on the replays, but that 11 minutes of added time, it was one of those moments.
Every second.
You were just everything, every moment was painful, and you wanted your life to accelerate.
Yeah, totally. There was a bit of shouting.
Time over and done with.
See, we didn't want to catch up. We watched it as live. We had no idea. I'm sitting there going, if this goes to extra time, I don't know how I'm going to be able to watch this before getting to work. I was genuinely, we watched it as if, I managed not to see anything, did not pick up my phone, did not just... It was incredible. We may have woken up some neighbours. There was some shouting at some point. But look, it was absolutely worth staying up for, worth getting up early for. I mean, Bellingham's 2 goals. What was fascinating for me was just the crowd in Mexico, almost entirely Mexicans, their home stadium, Mexico City. I mean, they'd been very loud beforehand, booing every time we had the ball, cheering when they had the ball. They went quite quiet in that minute or two, didn't they?
It was incredible. I mean, the atmosphere there, people who were there, I've read the reports, are saying it's probably as loud as anywhere they've been. The intimidation that England were facing there, plus the altitude, plus all the heat and so on, they really, really came to the party, though, didn't they? And in a sense, I think with Bellingham as the prime example, as you just noted there, they rose to the occasion. And that's what you want of your national team, to actually seize the moment and play their hearts out. And if they hadn't won, yes, it would have been disappointing, but we'd have still been proud of them.
Yeah.
But wow, they were just amazing yesterday. Their spirit, their determination. And listen, I don't want to make light of it. It's a bit of I am going to make a joke about it, but their complete kind of sense of commitment, summed up by Jordan Henderson, the substitute, who gets a yellow card and gets stretchered off to hospital, and he didn't even go on the pitch. I mean, this was...
he was leaping over a barrier, wasn't he? And he was. A bit of a worry. Well, also, I mean, because there was a red card, crucially, so we played with 10 men. This is after Kwanzaa. Was it Kwanzaa?
Joel Kwanzaa got sent off.
Kwanzaa got a red card. I mean, to be down to 10 men for most of the second half. I mean, what was interesting was the Mexican team seemed to be, and the spectators, just totally flummoxed by the fact they'd gone down a goal, let alone 2 goals at first. OK, they brought it back with 1, but they just seemed to be just totally thrown by this because, what is it? They've played 89 matches. This is their home stadium, high altitude. That was bad for England. We'd only had a few days to acclimatise, if at all. But they played 89 games and only ever lost 2. They had a clean sheet to that point, not conceded a goal. So they seemed completely and utterly discombobulated by those first 2 goals.
Yeah, they probably watched England earlier in the competition and thought, oh, we'll win this one. But no, this was a completely different England. Not only those first 2 goals, though, Julia, almost the moment that Quansah got sent off, England went on the counter-attack, won a penalty, and of course Sir Harry scored it. So it was that then they had to come back 2 goals, and they didn't make it, the Mexicans. But it was so tense, but tense in a really kind of enjoyable way afterwards.
Mostly. I think my stomach is still sort of calming down. And the extra icing on the cake, we were saying, of course, is that we're not going to be facing Brazil in the quarter-final on Saturday night. We're going to be facing Norway.
That's right. Norway with the giant Erling Haaland, who is scoring goals at a phenomenal rate, scored the 2 that put out Brazil last night. This is the interesting thing about the World Cup. It's the World Cup, and yet there's a familiarity. We watch Erling Haaland every week in the Premier League, and the England defence will have played against him so often, the individual members. In fact, some of them play with him. And so we'll see him every day in training. So it's not going to be a shock when they play against him. They know exactly what he'll do, and I'm sure they'll find a way to try and counter him.
Well, indeed. Now, this match is in Miami, so we're back down to a lower altitude, which should be good. We hope. We might actually be wanting those water breaks still, though. Well, how do you rate our chances?
I'm still, I don't know, Julia. I cannot tell. If the team that turned up last night turn up on Saturday night, I can't see anybody beating us, let alone Norway. So I'll put a curse on them. I'm sorry.
Thanks for that. And in terms of our route through, do we not face a very good chance of playing France next after that, if we get through?
The semi-final would be against Argentina. France reserved for the final, Julia. That's the big one.
Oh, again, it's the hope that kills you. Keep saying it, but it really, really is. Who was your man of the match last night?
Oh, without question, it was Jude Bellingham. I also thought I liked his very, very passionate and yet dignified interview afterwards. This is a leader.
Oh, and what's so amazing is to have 2 people who just literally just score goals like without even thinking about it. So we're not just reliant on one, on the captain. It was I have to say it was an absolute pleasure. What do you make? Just finally, your newspaper has said this morning this was up there, better than that 1966, was it?
Oh, I don't think it was better than 66, but it may have been the best since 66. I think in terms of what they were up against, amazing. Absolutely.
Great stuff. Wonderful to talk to you, Jim White, sports writer at The Telegraph. Just a quick response to that from Henry Hill, from The Critic.
I mean, nothing to dispute, especially the bit at the end with the extra time, right? Because
it's just awful.
When you hear about
it, they ended up being 11 minutes.
And I think the thing is, I don't normally count myself as superstitious, but this is what sport does to you, because you turn up at this stadium where Mexico never lose, and you're just there, you're like, OK, extra time. It's like playing on an Indian burial ground. You're like, something's going to go wrong. Of course something's going to go wrong. What is it? And so even those last few minutes right at the end, when it was all being played up at the England goal, and I was actually like just watching this, even just being like, this is obviously they were going to score or something, and I knew they didn't, and yet still, it's incredible.
I was watching, not knowing they didn't.
Right.
I'd love to hear your response. Did you watch it last night? Did you get up early? You going to work today? The kids got the day off school. You very insistent they went in anyway. Frankly, kids, man up. You need to learn how to do it, work hard, play hard. You should be in school. I'm going to be a bit judgy about any parent who's let their kids stay home from school today. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the teachers going, you can come in late. I don't think work and school are optional. I really don't. I think you just turn up and you push through. That's the deal. If I do just doze off mid-interview at any point today, just don't hold it against me. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, plenty more to come. We're going to be talking to the Institute for Economic Affairs, Lord Hannon, about all things political up next. Stay tuned and we'll get to your calls as well. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000, assuming you're still awake. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Now.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Henry Hill, political editor of The Critic, is still with me. In just a few moments, going to talk to Daniel Hannan, now Lord Hannan, of course, from the Institute of Economic Affairs, where he's now Director General. We'll talk to him about all the big political stories. Before we get to him, though, Henry Hill, we were talking a bit earlier about Nigel Farage and all the focus on him and his finances, and love to hear Dan Hannan's thoughts on that. He's now a non-affiliated peer. He was a Tory MEP, of course. But what do you make in terms of the actual scrutiny that is happening of such as it is of Andy Burnham? For my sins, I think he did an interview or he did a little 20-minute Q&A with LBC on Andrew Marr on Friday, I think it was. I mean, genuinely. Again, it's just like one of those Beth Rigby interviews on Sky News. You may as well have just run a bubble bath for him, got him a glass of champagne and said, how many champagne truffles would you like, sir? It was the most extraordinary. And the thing is that, I don't care what your politics are, who you support, whether you support a party or you support some political viewpoints of people, no one can ever accuse me of soft-soaping anyone who I'm even friends with, whether it's Richard Tice, Nigel Farage, people like that, who I've known for years, friendly with them, largely agree with their politics and very supportive of them. But, I still hold people to account. And the left just don't do it. Andrew Marr made no effort whatsoever to even pretend he was given proper scrutiny. Questions about, is it unseemly for all these people to be trying to get jobs? It's like, sorry, could you ask him about a policy? Could you ask him about taxes? Could you ask him about anything he's actually going to do when he's Prime Minister?
Yeah, it's just sort of, you think it's extinct, the sort of, is there anything else you'd like to tell the nation, Prime Minister, sort of interviewing.
It really is, isn't it?
But it's not. And I think partly it's just because, let's face it, not every political hack has a good background in policy, and that... Well,
Andrew Marr does.
And that, yeah, but then why? I think the interesting sort of tipping point was, did you see his... Andy Burnham's, it's called an AMA, Ask Me Anything, on Reddit.
I read it. I decided I'd save myself from that because everyone has panned it so much.
It was excruciating. And
in what way?
They would, so one, they pretended they had an outage while the mods were deleting loads of questions. But two, it really exposed just how little he understands the policies that he's advocating in a way that, if you've got a nice, tame interviewer, doesn't tend to come out.
Because they can brush over. Well, Kemi Badenoch put in a question, didn't she, herself, which I thought was hilarious. Well, look, let's talk to Lord Hannan about all of that right now. Director General of the Institute of Economic Affairs, the free market think tank. A very good morning to you, Daniel.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. First ask, did you watch the match last night or this morning?
Very exciting, wasn't it? Yes. Yes. Maybe the most exciting World Cup game that England's been in that I can remember watching.
Well, there we are. Well, let's hope there's more to come. There's more to come. Look, this always makes the nation feel better. We know that people like Keir Starmer would have been hoping that, if we could have an England World Cup win, we dare to dream. Don't dream, people. That would give him a bounce in the polls. And that does actually have political impact. If people feel happier, they feel more benignly towards their political leaders. But even if it does happen, it'll come too late for Keir Starmer, won't it?
Yeah, I think that may be a myth. It's often said that the England win in 1966 affected politics, and the timeline doesn't stack up. I think the actual story was that Harold Wilson said in 1970 that if England hadn't been knocked out in Mexico, as it turns out, and had gone on, then that Labour might have been better placed in the 1970 election. But I don't think it's ever actually happened, if you see what I mean.
That's very interesting. I want to ask you about Nigel Farage, who's very much the news, but I do first of all want to ask about because people talk about Nigel Farage because it matters what he does and who's funding him, because he may well be Prime Minister in a year or 2 or 3 years' time. But there seems to be remarkably little investigation into anything about Andy Burnham, who, let's face it, 99.999% will be our Prime Minister on the 20th of July. We were just talking about these, he's done this Reddit Ask Me Anything issue where he gets to choose which questions he answers, so that makes it rather unfair. An interview on LBC, which was just a little happy little bubble bath by candlelight, as far as I could tell. Do you think we've got enough scrutiny of Andy Burnham?
Well, I mean, the scrutiny that counts isn't. I've no reason to think that he doesn't lead a blameless personal life. The scrutiny that counts is what's he going to do what's he going to do that's different? He says it's going to be radically different and transformative and so on. But I'm wondering, in what direction would he go that Starmer wouldn't have gone in? And I don't think we've really had an answer to that, other than some very vague words about localism, which stop short of, by the way, I'm a huge localist, but stop short of doing the thing that would really make a difference, which is self-financing local councils. I don't see any indication that he's prepared to go that far. So I think, do you remember when Starmer, there was that wonderful tweet, wasn't there, by Michael Crick during the last election saying, my fellow journalists are going to look back on this moment in a couple of years' time and kick themselves for not having put Starmer under scrutiny. It seems weirdly as though we're repeating that.
Oh, yes.
Just the fact of turning up and not tripping over your shoelaces is enough.
No, without even a manifesto, which is very thin, but like nothing at all. And all we learned from that speech, it was a week ago today, from Andy Burnham was just, we were listening to it, for all 35 minutes. We just sort of, moving part of the number 10 operation into Manchester, and let's build some council houses. And we were saying, with who? With what? Where? Where are all the labourers you're going to find? Because actually all these young people who think we'd be training as labourers are currently the NEETs, not in education, employment or training. It is extraordinary they're going to make that mistake again. I'm saying we didn't make that mistake on this show. And many people at the Institute of Fiscal Studies were pointing out that none of the numbers added up. What do you think are going to be Burnham's biggest hurdles?
Well, I'm sure he is sincere in wanting to build more houses, as was Keir Starmer.
As were the Tories in every year they said they'd do it.
Right, and so why doesn't it happen? And the reason it doesn't happen is because every attempt to build more houses runs into judicial review, eco-regulations, EU-derived regulations, and Keir Starmer at the end of the day was not prepared to take the kind of radical action to get rid of those regulations that would have permitted the kind of house building he wanted. And in fact, right at the end, much too late to save his premiership, Keir Starmer admitted that and said, that I pull these levers and nothing is happening, and the system is weighted in favour of the people who try and stop things. So a very early test of Andy Burnham will be whether he is prepared to deregulate, to get rid of some of the things that stop us building anything, including North Sea terminals and houses and airports, runways and all the rest of it. Is he prepared to tackle that? Another test is, does he really mean what he says about decentralizing power in this country? He's absolutely right that we are one of the most over-centralized developed countries in the world. No argument from me at all on that. Compared to even France, even dirigiste, centralized France, local authorities raise about twice as much proportionately as ours do of their own budgets. And that's the real test of localism. In a country like Switzerland, it's like, 10 times.
But that's because they have a different history. None of the countries around Europe, which comparisons are made about, they're much less centralised. None of them have a world-class city like London in terms of its economic impact, and they simply don't. That's why we're so London skewed in this country.
Well, we don't need to be. For a long time, the primary purpose of local government, or the primary duty of local government, for hundreds of years in this country, was the relief of poverty. So I would say, between the dissolution of the monasteries and the 20th century Liberal government, welfare, benefits, was a local responsibility, which meant that people were much closer to the recipients and were much better able to discern between deserving and undeserving cases. We're now in a slightly weird position where local authorities have the responsibility to pay benefits, but they have absolutely no discretion over who qualifies for those benefits. Now, giving them that discretion, I would suggest, would be a huge way of bringing down some of the bills and cutting out some of the fraud. And by the way, also connecting people, right? If you're paying taxes to support people in your immediate vicinity rather than just handing it over to the government, I think that'd be a very different.
But Alden, I don't see how this works when you've got richer boroughs and poorer boroughs, and somewhere in a poorer borough and near Middlesbrough, that compared to say Chelsea and Westminster in London, completely different tax-paying cohort.
Sure, and that's why there is a top-up element. Even in Switzerland, there is a small kind of redistributive element
quite a big one,
to take care. But if you think about why some of these poorer boroughs are poor, it's because or not entirely because, but it's partly because their local authorities never get rewarded for doing the right thing and making them more prosperous. Because if you fail as a local council and more people become unemployed and more people become benefits dependent, that brings more welfare money into your locality and creates a larger electorate of people who are going to vote for the high spending party.
The perverse incentives. In terms of taxing people, Andy Burnham apparently is looking at widening the mansion tax proposal due to come in 2028 for people who have properties costing $2 million or more, a higher rate for those who have a property worth $5 million or more, bringing it down to $1.5 million. Now, the trouble with that is that's, you say mansion, that sounds like a shed load of money to most people who don't live in homes or houses that expensive, or indeed to people who live pretty much anywhere outside London. However, in London, that can easily be a semi-detached house in a normal street being worth that, and people having to find a couple of grand a year in taxes, which they may not have because they bought the property in 1975 and it's gone up in value. What do you make of that plan, if that is indeed what the plan is?
If indeed it is, I mean, of course you're right. This is a London versus the rest of the country issue. I would just make the wider point here, Julia. We are already raising more taxes than at any point since we were coming back from the demobilisation after 1945. More tax is not the answer. Taxes are at a record level, and yet we are still borrowing. We're spending, what, 5 times more on welfare than on defence. We're spending more on paying back, or not paying back, sorry, servicing the interest on former debts than on defence. More tax and more spending is not the answer. Now, Labour does have permission to do things that a Conservative government wouldn't do. Building more houses on the Green Belt is one of them, because the Green Belt was always heavily represented by Tory MPs, and their association chairmen were usually borough councillors. Reforming the NHS is another. They could introduce efficiency measures into the NHS in the way that Tony Blair did, without being accused of murdering the poor or whatever. And welfare reform is the big one. I think a Labour government could make huge savings in welfare.
But they're not going to. I mean, Andy Burnham was saying on Friday, and he'd think we need to tackle the welfare bill, but he'd do it differently. We didn't find out what the differently would be.
No, and I wonder whether he kind of has to say that until he's leader. I don't know. I mean, I was very struck when the vote went through last summer about personal independence payments and long-term sickness benefits. A Labour MP friend showed me his WhatsApp, which all the sort of Labour MPs were on. And what was doing the rounds on all those Labour WhatsApps was a survey by a disability campaign group showing how many people per constituency were claiming long-term sickness benefits, were claiming working age adults who said they were too ill to work. And in nearly 200 Labour seats, that number was bigger than the Labour majority. And so that's the fundamental problem.
Yeah, there's your issue.
Yeah. Now, I mean, a serious country cannot carry on with a problem like that. You cannot spend 5.5 times more on welfare for working age adults than on national defence.
Well, let's just mention the defence briefly. I want to ask you about Nigel Farage and reform, but we keep this brief. Keir Starmer is off to his last NATO summit tomorrow. Donald Trump's on the front pages, quite a few of the papers, basically saying, everyone needs to be spending 5% of GDP, not this nonsense 2.7%, or working towards 3.5%, as we're supposedly, but not really doing by 2035 under Keir Starmer's plan. One of the first tests for Andy Burnham is going to be where to find that 15 billion quid, that black hole, for that tiny little uplift in our defence spending. Should that be a priority?
Yes, but it doesn't matter whether you spend 2.2 or 3.7 or 5 or 10% of GDP on defence if your GDP is flatlining.
Yeah.
And so all of this comes back to growth. We were a successful country militarily, not because of some magical property in our soil or our skies or our seas, but because we were richer generally than our opponents, and that technological edge more than compensated for their usual advantages in territory and population. And I would say that for 300 years, up until the end of the Cold War, that was what gave Britain the edge and made us the greatest country in the world. We're now in a position where we are spending more on giving benefits to working age adults than we are taking in income tax from all of the people at work.
Yeah.
And that is the single biggest strategic threat we face.
Absolutely. Just finally, what do you make of all the coverage of Nigel Farage and his various terribly generous, very rich donors? There's the 5 million quid from the crypto billionaire Christopher Harbon from Thailand. And then there's this help that he received, again, both these things, before he was an MP in 2024 from George Cottrell, Posh George, as he's known, a convicted fraudster involved in a crypto sort of scam. In America, and served prison time even for it. But he's no doubt at all, he is a good friend of Nigel Farage. He's let him stay in his home. He has helped him with support staff, social media and the like. Do you think that Nigel Farage has done anything wrong?
Well, my party political glands were cauterized in a painful operation when I became director of the IEA, Juliet. But, I mean, just looking at it, if you like, analytically or journalistically, plainly these stories are not helping Nigel and are not helping reform. I mean, there was a sense that he was going to be different, and now I think a lot of his voters are wondering whether that's true. On the other hand, the best thing that could happen to Nigel from here is that there is a hostile investigation and a ruling against him from the authorities. That will then allow him, Trump-like, to turn the whole story into the establishment was out to get me from day one. So,
which worked. I mean,
I suspect he is praying for a negative ruling from the parliamentary standards.
Which is what many are expecting in terms of the Christopher Harbon. But as you say, that's what the Democrat sort of media establishment thought would happen with Donald Trump, that, oh, you know, this is going to completely kill off any chance of him running again, and did the exact opposite. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Lord Hannan, Daniel Hannan, thank you so much for joining us, Director General of the Institute of Economic Affairs. Going to take a quick break, and then we're going to take your messages and your calls. Interestingly, a lot of you want to have your say on Nigel Farage and those investigations into his donations. Love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. It's the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and 10:53 is the time, and you are on the phone line, so 0344 499 1000. Nick is on the line. He's in London. Nick, you want to talk about these allegations about, Nigel Farage and his finances?
Yes, I do. Well, more about the deluge of stories which are suddenly coming out about this.
Yeah.
It's headlining BBC News, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
And this story has been around for months.
So just so people know, there's a story about George Cottrell and his mate, convicted fraudster. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was particularly new in this, but it's all in the context of this parliamentary investigation over the Christopher Harbon donation, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, and it reminds me a lot of Partygate. You know, the Boris Johnson birthday cake story.
Yeah.
Well, that story, the birthday cake, had been around. It was a Times sketch thing, a nice story, for a year, and suddenly it becomes this focused story that the legacy media, the mainstream media, banked on and on.
I disagree with you. I'm very fed up with people pretending that Boris Johnson was ousted because he ate some cake. That was just the pictures that we had. There were way more pictures. That was, I think, it came up a second time because, of course, there was the actual parliamentary report. For which, and then he got fined, by the police for that occasion. There were far worse offences. I think the whole thing was a complete whitewash myself. But are we not entitled to scrutinise people who either are Prime Minister or would like to be Prime Minister, and who is funding them?
Oh, yes, we are. For sure we are. But then the people who are Prime Minister and our ministers are human beings themselves. They're entitled to mess up every now and again. Everyone does. And
No. That's sort of saying the F word by accident in an interview. That's people have affairs and things like that, and that's their personal lives. If you're in public life, I mean, I discussed this with Nigel Farage the other day on the show. When he said to me it was none of my business, that £5 million he had from Christopher Harborne. And I'm like, I'm a voter. It's absolutely my business. Who financially supports politicians? There's no doubt at all. They have an impact on the policies. They just do.
Yeah, agreed. But people mess up every now and again, Julia. You must give them a bit of...
He's not saying he messed up. He's saying he's done nothing wrong. I don't necessarily think that he has in this scenario.
I don't know the rules well enough to say yes he has, no he hasn't. So I'm not going to comment on that. But the powers that be will know, and assuming the parliamentary standards do a fair look into this, they'll come out and say yes he has, no he hasn't.
Yeah.
And the punishment should fit the crime.
Could of course, with the Harborne case, a lot of people expect that in the Parliament that he is going to be found sort of to have committed a breach of the rules, and then he could face, depending on whether he gets a 10-day suspension or longer, he could then face a recall petition and then possibly a by-election. I mean, there's no doubt at all. There isn't a single, I don't think there's a single Reform member on that committee, although there are half of them are lay members. It's going to be interesting to see. Nick, thank you for that. Stuart, he's also in London, actually, very London-based calls today. Good morning to you, Stuart. What do you want to say?
Good morning. It's wonderful to speak to you again.
And you.
I always love speaking to you, listening to your show.
Oh, thank you.
I said to Price, I met him some time ago, and I said, you're saying they would do everything they can to destroy you.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, 100%.
He's got money for Lewis Hager's the convicted for, so she's going to be a government minister very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They're genuinely reading some of the reports this week, and I'm like, are you kidding me? She was sacked as Transport Secretary for lying about it.
Exactly. Then you've got the guy, Andy Burnham, promised to build 10,000 social houses. He built 1,200. He gave his wife a contract worth tens of thousands of pounds.
His wife worked for a company that got a contract.
She was the CEO.
Yeah. But
I mean, you look at all what's going on. They know there's no scrutiny in these people whatsoever. None whatsoever. Now, he got this $5,000. Apparently, he said from his for his security. He wasn't an MP at the time. I'm not really.
But the rules say if you become an MP within a year of getting it, you have to declare it unless it's purely private. To a certain extent, his personal. But he said he hasn't spent a penny of it.
Possibly should have done that. Well, he could always give it back, of course. Get it out.
Do you think it merits investigation? I mean, again, I'm with you. Everybody should get the same scrutiny involved in politics, and I don't think they do. They definitely want to throw the book at him. But do you not think, though, we have a right to know if a politician, someone who could be Prime Minister, is getting £5 million from someone over there or getting freebies from someone else over there? Do we not have a right to know that?
That's possible, but but it wasn't to do with politics. He got the money for his security, so really.
What about the help from Posh George?
What, the convicted fraudster?
Yeah.
Did Nigel Farage know he's a convicted fraudster?
Yes, I mean it was quite public
but like Lewis Hague, don't people have a right to be rehabilitated?
Oh yeah, no, he was convicted and served time since they've been friends. There's no doubt at all about that. No, you're entitled to be friends with someone who's got a conviction.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the Green Party, whether they're it's Islamic fundamentalists. There's all sorts of dodgy things going. It's only for him. They're trying everything they can. They've had a cosy cartel for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
They are petrified. If he got in power and they've got American-style Doge, look at the books and see what's been going on with all this money. Look at HS2, £42 billion spent. And they won't even finish in 2040.
Yeah.
China built a longer railway through mountains in 3 years.
Yeah.
Where in God's name is this? They are petrified. They find out what's been going on. A lot of them are going to finish up behind bars.
Well, there you are then, Stuart. Right, he knows his timings. He can hear the music there. Stuart, thank you very much indeed. Not impressed with this. Oh, look, I agree. I think the establishment is absolutely going to try and titch up Nigel Farage. Should he do his best to not give them easy ammunition then? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. Well done if you're still awake, everybody. You either stayed up late or, like me, got up very early to watch the match, or, well, like Mark, who's in our control room, no interest whatsoever. I'm afraid if you're saying, I've come to listen to political news and current affairs, not the football, not listening to Talk Sport right now, I'm afraid you are going to have a little bit of sport. I do apologise, but when it's on the front pages, then it's news. Them's the rules, folks. Anyway, whether you're with us on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to discuss England's 3-2 win over Mexico in the early hours of this morning. Jude Bellingham scored twice. within 2 minutes, and Harry Kane scored a penalty to send England to the quarter-finals. And it's not against Brazil, it's against Norway this Saturday. Do we dare to hope yet? Also, NATO allies must step up defence spending immediately, or they will face consequences. That's what Donald Trump has been telling European leaders ahead of the the NATO meeting in Ankara in Turkey tomorrow. Plus, a new government-backed review into police, co-authored by Lord Blunkett, former Labour Home Secretary. It says that police must stop engaging in woke culture wars and focus instead on, this is going to blow your minds, people, catching criminals and preventing crime. I know. Whatever will they think of next? Plus, latest royal news, Prince Harry will not be bringing Meghan and his children to London after a request for police protection was denied. I've never seen more shenanigans over someone's holiday plans. He's calling it a work trip, is it? But it's, of course, the launch of Invictus Games. But we'll talk about that with Rupert Bell, get his thoughts. I'm delighted to say joining me today is Henry Hill, political editor of The Critic. Morning once again to you.
Good morning.
Henry, if you're just tuning in, has watched the highlights of the match this morning, but is a little bit bleary-eyed, not because of the footy, because of Silverstone yesterday. So we're all going to talk quietly for him. It'd be really, really nice. Question to you today, look, whether you want to talk about the football, your reaction to them getting through to quarter-finals, a lot of you on the phone lines about Nigel Farage. Do you think this is a witch hunt about his finances? Who gives him money? Whose house he stays in before he's an MP? Is this the establishment basically taking on Nigel Farage because they are running scared? Why do we not see the same level of scrutiny of, I don't know, Andy Burnham? I'm not saying Andy Burnham's had any dodgy donations, but are we saying that Nigel Farage's are? Certainly. The 5 million quid from Christopher Harborne, living in Thailand now, British crypto billionaire, is being investigated. Many in Westminster saying that Nigel Farage could actually get a very big slap on the wrist and a suspension from Parliament for failing to declare that sum. But is the same level of scrutiny being delivered to him as to others? And I think one can actually tie this in with what's been happening in France, where we've seen Marine Le Pen she's got a guilty verdict and has got an appeal tomorrow against basically a 5-year ban on running for political office, including the French presidency in a couple of years, over basically putting, her Front National, as they were then, staff working in EU roles, pretending they were EU staff, when, let's face it, pretty much every political party in the European Parliament was doing that and continues to do that. But the scrutiny of certain people seems to be much stronger. Can we liken it with what the Democrats tried to do against Donald Trump with his various court cases trying to prevent him from coming back to office? And how did that work out for them? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls to charge the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. As I say, Henry Hill, political editor of The Critic, is with us. So you didn't step to watch the match, but not for want of wanting to try.
Genuinely, I knew I was coming on today. Really, I'm not the world's biggest football fan, but I do watch the World Cup. Really,
it's different. World Cup is different.
Exactly, right. And also, especially once you've got through the early stages, and then thought, you know what? In the end, I'll watch the highlights because you need to be up and awake for 3 hours. And important as it is to have seen the match, if I was here sort of slumped over, I don't think anyone would be impressed. But it was genuinely one of those ones. Watching the highlights when I was like, I really wish. I will go back and watch it.
It
but
genuinely
I really
was worth watching the whole thing.
A bit of it, that I had been able to see it as you saw it, like as live.
My stomach is still coping with the sort of the
I don't know what the
trauma
stress would have done to me. Because this is the thing, even watching the highlights and knowing the outcome, it was just because you're at this stadium where the opposite never lose, and
they've only lost 2 out of 89 matches.
And you're there in the last couple of minutes of the match, and everyone is all around the England goal, and even I, who knew the result, was there being like, something's going to go horribly wrong. Something's going to go horribly wrong.
We were just sitting there, having got up in time to watch the match, but not if it went to extra time. We're just sitting there, 10 minutes of injury time in the second half, going, Come on, you can't go to extra time. Don't let them score.
So maybe I made a bad call, because actually maybe what would have happened is if I had stayed up and watched it, the adrenaline would still just not have left my system. And I would be sort of
all I can say is if I just keel over onto the desk tired, you know what's happened. Take over.
I will.
Them's the rules.
Absolutely.
If you're just tuning in, come on. 3-2 victory, England versus Mexico. Again, high altitude. I know we're saying to me, like, oh, we were the favourites. Well, yeah, I mean, we're a higher ranked team than Mexico. However, they effectively have a home game at high altitude in basically a stadium that had 3,000 England fans. That was it in it. There was just no doubt at all that the odds were against us last night. But absolutely, I mean, it was stonking play. It wasn't even just like a messy win. It was just beautiful play. The camaraderie, absolutely amazing. We got a red card, so we got a player sent off. We also got substitute Jordan Henderson, as our guest pointed out, didn't even play, never even went on the pitch. He managed to get an injury, sort of leaping over one of the barriers, which is not helpful. But 2 goals within, I mean, literally a minute apart from Jude Bellingham. Kane's penalty, although he kind of gave away a penalty as well. A couple of great saves. So it had everything. It had everything. And the key thing that is really exciting is that we're into the quarterfinals, 10 p.m. England time on Saturday night. But we're not playing Brazil. We're going to be playing Norway, who knocked Brazil out astonishingly last night. We've had some real surprises in this match.
So it's sort of that 1-2 thing. You're like, oh yeah, we're not facing Brazil, and you're like, oh, we're facing someone who beat Brazil. Hold on a minute. Yeah. And then from there, it's more and more storied. There's potentially Argentina. Great potential for, and then France. You're like, my God, they couldn't have. If you were writing this as a film or a script, and you had to pick some really iconic opponents.
Well, we didn't get Germany, but
we didn't get Germany. No, but again, because they've been knocked out. And I do think that the one thing you mentioned earlier, the elevation of the Mexico ground, is really interesting, because you don't often think about that kind of thing in football. Whereas F1, it's all about engineering. It's engineering and driver skill. This is a real one where you're like, oh, hold on a minute. Actually, if you've ever been like mountaineering or high altitude hiking, it really is extraordinarily different.
The idea they could run around, I mean, it was very nice, but you see so few times, especially like Jude Bellingham was next to a Mexican player, he'd barely even broken into sweat. Jude is looks like he's just got out of the shower.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're really not used to it, and so it was a fascinating sort of tweak, but they did manage to pull off an incredibly impressive victory.
They really did. Now, it's very interesting because another big match involving USA v Belgium, that has caused quite a lot of controversy because key US striker has basically been given a free pass extraordinarily. Basically, he had a red card, which meant he wasn't going to be able to play. This is one of their big stars, Folarin Balogun. I probably mispronounced that, but basically, appeal from the US, including Donald Trump personally calling the FIFA president Gianni Infantino, the guy who gave him the FIFA Peace Prize, I kid you not, to review this one-match ban handed to the striker, and yeah, it's been removed. Belgium absolutely furious. UEFA, interestingly, who are not much better than FIFA, by the way, when it comes to, oh, has anyone got a large suitcase of cash they'd like to hand over? They have said that crosses red line. And you made the point earlier, like there are different sort of different levels of interference, shall we say?
I think even if you're somebody who likes a good bribe, which is, it seems to be quite a lot of people working in international football, the one thing that you'll know if you're savvy is that you don't want to destroy the product, because the product is what people are paying for, right? So with FIFA, fine, they'll end up throwing the World Cup in very, very strange places that happen to have very rich owners from time to time. People sort of accept that that's how it goes. But you have never, I think, previously had FIFA interfering with decisions on the pitch. And I think that is a red line that you simply cannot tolerate, because if the president of the country you're having the match in can be overturning referee decisions, you no longer have a game of football. Right? And I think that that's why I think that UEFA and all the rest of it are like, hold on, no, this is the one thing you absolutely can't do. Give the US advertisers their water breaks. Fine.
Don't you love the fact that all the fans boo this? I love it. Well, completely breaks up.
If you ever watch it,
although if you're watching on catch up, you can fast forward through it.
And if you watch it on American TV, sometimes they're still running the ads when the play comes back and they miss the start of play. It's extraordinary. But they're used to their American sports, where obviously they play for 30 seconds, they stop for a minute.
I'm still struggling with the 10-1 countdown before the start of the match. match.
It's just the whole thing is
It's just like,
weird.
Please stop imposing your American stuff on us. Thanks.
Right, exactly. That all of that is strange, but it was still nonetheless within the boundaries of normal FIFA nonsense.
Yeah.
This is. I think FIFA will really regret it, to be honest, because you were mentioning earlier, I think if they start doing this is the kind of thing where people are like, no. We need an alternative.
I mean, we absolutely need an alternative. I think it's just, I mean, once Russia and Qatar got those
great footballing nation of Qatar.
I mean, genuinely, it's just so blatantly, outrageously dodgy. I mean, it's just ridiculous. By the way, just to cheer everyone up, this is really funny. Got a very short clip. Harry Kane. In his post-match interview with the BBC, and that stadium was very, very loud last night, and someone lost his voice. Have a watch and a listen.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. We had to fight. We had to find something. Yeah, I've just been sitting there. I can't really talk, but all the occasion, the team, everything against us, we found a way.
I mean, he did push on, and they did carry on, but yeah, there was nothing. They left nothing on the pitch. They really did. Anyway, I mean, just great. So I'd love to hear your reaction. I'd love to know. I mean, okay, where are you on this, Henry? I know you haven't got kids, but I have to say, if my daughter would be younger and she was at school and we got up early to watch the match or stayed up late, she'd be in a uniform and be at school and on time. I'm sorry. I'm very much the view that the message you send your kids on these issues, and also, I'm sorry, my tube was half empty this morning on the way into work. Load of people who were working from home. Quite a lot of people in this office don't seem to be around, so you might have expected to see around. Lots of empty streets. I mean, if you can get away with it, fair enough. But I mean, I think the message you sent to your kids. I think schools saying you can come in late or you get extra points if you merit points if you come in on time. Sorry, you got to teach your kids to work hard and play hard. They need to be able to hack it when stuff like this comes up and still turn up on time.
I mean, that's how I would put it. I would say it's actually an incredibly useful skill. When I was a bit younger, used to go out clubbing, get out at 6, roll into work, have a shower, and then work. And the ability to do that means that actually you have an awful lot more freedom to go out and enjoy your nights out. If you've trained yourself, because often it is a matter of willpower, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 3 or 4 nights in a row, you're going to wreck yourself. But one night...
You've met my daughter.
One night you can power through it if you want to, and if you learn to do it, that means that you have the freedom to go and do those things.
Absolutely. No, I really, really strong. I want to know from you. Have you let your kids be off school today? Has the school allowed it? I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. What you're mostly getting in touch about, though, is the next story, and this is Nigel Farage and the allegations about him. Now we know all the stuff about Christopher Harborne. He's the crypto billionaire in Thailand. The reform leader is currently being investigated over a $5 million donation that he got in early 2024, which he originally said was for his security, and then he said it was a gift, and then he said it's none of our business, and he could spend it on a Ferrari if he wanted. The story changed quite a few times, but he's being investigated. He says he's done nothing wrong. It was a personal gift. He wasn't an MP, but actually the rules are very clear, that you're supposed to declare anything that could, if you're in doubt. And again, is his security a personal issue, given he needs security because of his political views? I've always thought that was just a big error not to actually declare that. And it does look like a lot of people in Westminster are expecting the mood music around this Privileges and Standards Committee investigation is that he will be basically given a slap on the wrist. Could even face a ban, a suspension from Parliament. If he does get that, if it's more than 10 days... There could be a recall petition in his Clacton-on-Sea seat. And we know that, Rupert Lowe, Restore and the Tories and others are absolutely gunning for it. I mean, the repercussions of that are huge. But now we've got these allegations in the Sunday Times today, all about basically some help given by George Cottrell, Posh George as he's known, and he's basically a long-term friend, an ally on Brexit. He was, involved in UKIP, young guy. He's around a lot. You'll have seen him in the local Westminster pubs, and he worked on Farage's online content before he was elected. He has security staff, security staff, social media staff, 3 of them working on it. He also claimed that Farage basically stayed at a property rented by Cottrell near Buckingham Palace, near Westminster. There's also stuff about how Nigel Farage has built up this sort of 5-strong home property empire worth a few million. And as if they're very surprised, the man has been earning a fortune as a broadcaster and giving speeches and things. I mean, he's been paid, God knows what it was an hour to advertise gold. lots of people buy property. One of them's owned entirely by his partner. She's got her own independent money anyway. Of course they've bought property. There's nothing dodgy about that, but the implication is that there is. Do you think that this is, as a couple of our callers have said, this is just a witch hunt against Nigel Farage rather than legitimate scrutiny?
Honestly, the slightly unhelpful answer is I think it's a bit of both. I think there are definitely people who are out there looking for this sort of thing, but they have found it, and they have found it fairly. And I think it's important that when we... is it true that some politicians like Andy Burnham are not getting the scrutiny they need on things like policy? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that people like Gabriel Pogren, the investigations editor of The Times, who's come out with this latest stuff, is leaving stuff on the table with regards to Andy Burnham taking donations and so on. I think actually the journalists have been fairly good with when Labour had things like Lord Alley of digging into this stuff, whichever party it is. Well, as for the actual thing, I think that Nigel has done himself an enormous disservice, at the very least, by simply not declaring this at the beginning. The rules about declarations are perfectly sensible. If you receive a donation, I think it's within a year of becoming an MP, you need to tell it, because otherwise, obviously, there's a huge loophole if somebody can just whack you a massive bung the day before you get elected. It's not an unsensible rule. If he had done that at the time, I think all of this would have gone away. There would have been some spluttering from the usual suspects. But British voters...
This is a major tactical error.
Right. British voters actually don't care about people being rich most of the time. Deeply disappoints the left, but they mostly don't.
But they've been having a go at Nigel Farage for years. They had a thing about Boris Johnson. Right. People went in the affairs. Things. People say, I don't care. It's not relevant. I'm not his wife. I don't care. Genuinely,
most voters don't care. But the problem is, you've alluded to it, Nigel is acting incredibly defensive. He's acting incredibly spiky.
Well, he's not doing... he wasn't out about defending himself. We had Robert Jenrick out defending himself. I have a funny feeling Robert Jenrick's going to regret some of that.
And that is... And I'm not... You can't do the whole no smoke without fire thing. As of yet, we do not know that there's anything dodgy about any of this money, but it is just deeply, deeply unhelpful.
But this is it. It doesn't have to be dodgy. No. We still have a right to know.
Absolutely.
And the same as like Wahid Ali. I mean, it's interesting. Gabriel Pogren in the last hour, the Sunday Times reporter who's got the lead byline on that Sunday Times story. And lots of people say, look, actually, we knew a lot of this stuff already in terms of support from Control. Again, he's got a lot of rich friends who support him on the Brexit issue. And, so what? Why not? But Gabriel was pointing out, that he's the one who broke, with his investigations team, the Wahid Ali donations and various other stories as well involving, Angela Rayner staying in his apartment, in multi-million-pound apartment in New York and things like that. I have to say, these are journalists who I rate very highly, who will go after anybody who thinks there's an issue. But the point is, it doesn't have to be wrongdoing. You just still have to obey the rules. And Nigel Farage just denied breaking the rules. His defence on both the 5 million quid from Harborne and on this is like he didn't have to declare it. These are personal things. I mean, I thought Robert Jenrick's defence was quite sensible in terms of he stayed a few times at this property. His friends got a place in Westminster. His place isn't in town, and he stayed at his friend's place. I mean, that's not a crime. I mean, that's not dodgy. No. People stay at their friends' homes.
No, I think
it's a thing.
That makes perfect sense. And again, this is where it gets really... This is where Farage has sold himself short and done himself harm, because naturally there is a couple of things here which have attracted people's attention, and now people are adding more and more stuff into it. If you had just said, oh yeah, Nigel Farage, a mate of his has a place in Westminster and he stays there a few times, wouldn't register on the scale, would it? But if you've already got a donation story that you can weave it into, then all of a sudden this stuff starts getting stuck to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's just also talk about Andy Burnham. A lot of headlines the weekend. Tony Blair's think tank urging against the wealth taxes, capital gains tax being ramped up to match income tax. I can understand the reasons for this. However, when it comes to actually deterring investment and future growth, it doesn't work. There are lots of things you think, well, obviously these very rich people, they should pay more tax, like this mansion tax, which again, £2 million plus properties, pretty much entirely those in London and the South East. And that's due to start in 2028. Talk about his team wanting to bring that down to a 1.5 million threshold, which will take in, I think, it's another 150,000 homeowners. But could be people living in really quite normal... if you saw this home in any other street, in any other city, you'd go, it's probably worth, I don't know, maybe 800,000 or something. No, it can be worth 1.5 million in large parts of completely normal suburban London. And these people will be going, I don't have a spare 2 or 3K to pay an extra tax on top. And a lot of these things are very popular to all the people who don't own those properties or don't have those sort of profits or capital gains tax. They're subject to capital gains tax, but they tend not to have a very good impact, like like stamp duty. You know, no one round my way moves. You don't move. No one can afford to move because of stamp duty. Literally, like you might do a basement, you might do an extension. No one can afford to. The property market just goes completely stuck. Everyone's just waiting, unless or until the Tories or Reform get in and dump stamp duty, when suddenly everyone will be moving. It'll be a massive boost to the economy. Some of these things sound really good at the time, but actually have a terrible impact on the economy.
I think the problem, it's one of the many problems with the so-called mansion tax is, one, you're entirely correct. Its idea of what a mansion is that suitable for Andy Burnham? Perhaps a bit, regional. If you look at the insane property prices in London, but also the logic of a mansion tax is that it makes people move. Right? It's like, OK, we're going to make occupying this expensive property...
Isn't it just to get money off people who've got money?
Well, no, that's probably it in practice. But the theoretical economic logic is that if you make it expensive year on year to have a big house, then people will move and redistribute. But if you're not building enough houses, they can't. And so you don't even get the positive effect that you're meant to have.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's so much more I want to talk about. Lots of big stories. We're going to be talking about police in this new police report and the royals. Where is Prince Harry staying? Is he bringing his wife and kids? And do we care? We'll talk about that coming up. First up, though, we are going to take your calls. 87222 is the number to text, but the number to call is 0344 499 1000. I'll get to some of your messages and get to your calls. A lot of you want to talk about Nigel Farage. Is this a witch hunt against him, or, frankly, does he have questions to answer about who the hell he's hanging around with and giving him money? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Talk. The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:27 is the time. Let's talk to you and get what your thoughts are. All the calls coming in right now, all about Nigel Farage. Is this a witch hunt against him? All these exposés about who funds him? Let's talk to Miranda, who's in Cumbria. Hello, Miranda.
Hello.
Hello. What do you make of all these investigations, then?
I don't think it's particularly fair. I'm not particularly bothered. But if you are investigating one individual politician with such venom, then you have to investigate everyone. It has to be consistent.
Well, the reporter of the Sunday Times who leads the investigation team there, who put this stuff on the front page, a lot of people saying actually quite a lot of there was already known anyway about George Cottrell. But as he pointed out, he's the one who broke, Lord Ali giving, free gear Keir. He broke that as well. His thing is, I'll investigate anyone.
He did, but Keir Starmer stayed in that position. Did anybody investigate why Keir Starmer hadn't acted Parliament to protect his individual pension? How many houses does Keir Starmer?
Well, no, wait a minute. I don't think he was even an MP when that was brought. That was just because he was DPP. I mean, it's a bizarre situation. I do get that, but
yeah, it is. But there are things which should be investigated which haven't been investigated, and Starmer stayed in position for 2 years.
Oh no, but hold on a minute. There was no one was trying to push him out. He just hadn't declared. But is there a difference between your mate giving you $5,000 suits and things and someone, a crypto billionaire who probably also your friend on the other side of the world giving you 5 million quid?
No, there's no difference whatsoever.
Isn't there?
You've broken the rules, you've broken the rules. It has to be consistent in how you treat people. The same with the law, to any law at all. You can't, with regards to people who rape or, obviously this is a completely different issue.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how many people you've raped or what you've done, but essentially doesn't matter where you come from, the law is the law.
Yeah.
And it has to be consistent.
Well, in this case, there's no accusation anyone's broken the law. This is just about parliamentary rules. But you're just saying it doesn't feel like it's consistent.
No, not at all. I don't at all. I mean, you have to then start and investigate every politician. And it does seem like they've literally gone for the jugular with regards to Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
And yes, but then, and same with Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham's wife has something to do with the electric cars or electric buses or Birmingham. You have to start investigating that. Nobody appears to be whiter than white within Parliament. They all seem to have something there. And I feel that it's consistency.
OK, no, fair enough. Legal Reason's got to say there's no allegation of wrongdoing regarding Andy Burnham's wife, who's a senior figure at a company which was awarded a contract in Manchester, which one, I think there's been coverage of that, but certainly. Miranda, thank you for that. Let's go to Daniel, who's in Epsom. Hi, Daniel, what do you want to say about this?
Hey, Julia. I think you should face scrutiny with your business dealings and gifts if you're an MP. Mm-hmm. But if you're not, then I think you're a free citizen, aren't you? You can do what you like.
Well, no, but hold on a minute. I mean, as Henry Hill's pointed out, you can't have a situation where until the day of the election you can be given, let's say someone's like given, 5 billion quid, not even 5 million, but 5 billion quid the day before doesn't count. But of course that could reasonably be seen to be influencing your. I've got to be honest with you. If someone gave me a shed load of money, and just I think they'd probably want something from me. I'm sorry, I think they would. Why are they giving me that money?
I think what the establishment don't realise is that this is going to make him stronger. This is going to give him much more verve with the electorate, because the electorate are actually smart.
Yeah.
And we realise in the next general election, we're not just voting to change the government. I think most of the public realise that we need a fundamental change at Whitehall.
Yeah.
We need a fundamental change at the civil service. We need this immigration crisis. I mean, it's a national emergency.
Yeah.
People are getting stabbed and killed and raped every day in the news, and no one's lifting a finger. And, law and order is at an all-time low. I mean, basically, theft is basically legalised, right?
Yeah.
We see the decline and degradation in our country, and we realise what you're going to need to do to stop that. Now, it's clear to me the only person who has a cat in hell's chance of putting us back on track is Mr. Nigel Farage. I've met him a couple of times. He's a lovely man. He's genuine as well, on and off camera.
Oh, he's the same person, absolutely.
And you know what, Julia? I think the British majority believe in him. I think we need someone to believe in, and I believe in him, and I think the British majority believe in him, and they can throw as many stones as they want, right? It will just make him stronger.
Very, very, and again, as happened with Donald Trump, and he was actually convicted of. These were criminal allegations, a lot of them. There's no criminal allegation, by the way, at all against Nigel Farage. These are parliamentary rules. Daniel, really interesting call as well. Thank you very much. Love to hear your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Up next, we'll be talking about a new report on policing, telling police to stop the culture wars and do some. I don't know. This is mad. I don't know why no one's thought of this before. Actually, some actual catching criminals and preventing crime. Amazing. That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:34 is the time. Right, let's talk about various different policing stories in the news today with Harry Miller. He's a former police officer and founder of Fair Cop. Very, very good morning to you, Harry.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. There is so much to get through, mate. Let's start, though, with a story that's on a lot of the front pages today, and that is this new report co-authored by former Home Secretary Lord Blunkett and also Lord Herbert as well, Police Leadership Commission. And basically, this is a report into, well, what's going on with police forces. And their commission basically is called for an ethical reset. They said this found evidence of nepotism, of corruption, cronyism, a shallow talent pool, and they've also said that the forces are woefully underinvesting in talent. They need to rebuild public trust. And here's a wild idea. They have suggested that they should be focusing on catching criminals and preventing crime rather than taking part in wokeism and culture wars. I mean, mind-blowing stuff, Harry.
It really is. I mean, this report, it's a report of two halves, quite frankly, because we've got, on the one hand, we've got Lord Blunkett, who is as sound as a pound. He's been calling for common sense policing for a long, long time. And he's a man with experience, former Home Secretary, Sheffield lad, knows what he's talking about. On the other side, we've got Lord Herbert, who's the person who has been behind the delve into woke. This is a guy whose College of Policing has instructed officers up and down the country to behave as woke as they possibly can. Now, I think what's happened is he's seen that the tide is turning and he's wanting to jump back onto the right side of history. So I have very little faith in Lord Herbert, but I have a lot of faith in Lord Blunkett. He's a sound Sheffield guy. But you're absolutely right, Julia. Why did they need a report to tell them that what the British public want is a police force whose primary concern is catching criminals? You know, it's about preserving life, protecting property and catching criminals. Why did we need a report to remind us of that?
That's the really scary thing, though, isn't it? And we know a lot of it comes from the top. And we've had, the Henry Novak case and some other cases I want to go into where, you've got this two-tier policing where they are just more obsessed with culture wars, tweets, the colour of someone's skin, their religion or not, their lack of religion, as the issue, or their political views, rather than who is the person at risk here and who is the perpetrator.
Yeah, that's it. And I say the other problem with this report, as with all reports, even the law, is that the police take so long to apply it. I mean, we've had the Supreme Court ruling about what a woman is. Yeah. They haven't applied that yet. We had multiple wins by me in the High Court, followed by Suella Braverman publishing a new legislation about non-crime hate incidents. It took them years and years to apply that. Now, we, as the British public, don't get a time to consult, do we? If the speed limit changes down our road and it drops from 60 mile an hour to 30 mile an hour, I can't keep doing 60 whilst I consult with my employers. I've got to obey the law straight away. But it seems as though the police and other sort of quasi-government agencies have given themselves a massive
They really have. And it undermines them so much. It undermines so many of the police. And we know something like, was it a third of police officers now have had less than 5 years in the job. Massively inexperienced. And so much that experience, that knowledge, that ability to read people, to know how to, to diffuse things. That experience is being gone. And I've said this so many times before. Apologies if you've heard it a million times. I've got a load of friends who are coppers. And I remember going to, one of my really good friends, his 50th, and genuinely, most of the people at the party were coppers. I don't think there was a single person in there who couldn't tell me the exact number of years, months, weeks and days until they could retire and still get their full pension. And they are all going to leave on the first day they're eligible. They're done. They hate the job now. And these are good men and women who want to do a good job for us.
Well, this report talks about there being an absolute dearth of talent at the top. Well, that's because all the good officers are leaving. They're treated terribly by their senior officers. If they don't buy in fully into the DEI nonsense and they maintain focus purely on catching criminals and preserving life, then they're not showing the right stuff to progress up the career ladder. And so we end up with a dearth of leadership and not a single outstanding force in this country, according to the report. That is absolutely shocking. So this is down to the NPCC, it's down to the College of Policing, and it's down to repeated Home Secretaries taking their eye off the ball and leave it to rank amateurs like me and a few others to shout foul. And I think that is fundamentally wrong. We've ended up with a police force that repeated Home Secretaries deserve, and it's time it's time to stop the rot.
Well, indeed, it's not, but it's not the police force we deserve. Look, we've had that big row over two-tier policing. I mean, we've had a lot of it, you know, Southport riots onwards, but we saw it with Henry Novak and the investigations there into the officers over misconduct and, I would say, abject incompetence in terms of, you know, how they handled that awful, awful, tragic scene. We've had a number of little stories, and again, these things, they emerge on social media first. They often don't get picked up by the mainstream media, but, I mean, there's this case, and Robert Jenrick from Reform, he's got involved in this. West Midlands Police accused a two-tier justice after a young white man, this is happening back on June the 21st, there's full footage, but this young white man was arrested. He was basically in the streets, I think he's quite drunk, he's being basically sort of physically attacked by a group of men who are black. He then gets punched, he's getting attacked. Police arrived, they were very nearby, apparently dealing with another incident. He clearly, it's very obvious from the video, he's quite disorientated. He gets grabbed by a WPC, punches her. He then realises she's a WPC and stops. He's been arrested for assaulting a police officer. No effort was made to track the gang of youths who were black who had attacked him. And there's this, you know, this view seeing yet again, you know, whether colour had anything to do with it, we don't know. But yet again, it does feel like the police have gone for the easy target here.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like we've got an inversion of the McPherson report.
Yeah.
You know, the McPherson report made it heightened people's senses to, you know, cultural sensitivities with regard to skin colour, and said you can't keep persecuting black people, you can't keep ignoring the concerns of black people. Well, all that's happened is we've flipped it on its head. We're looking at a negative of that. So the police are now showing the same attitudes, but not to the black community, but to the white Christian community. And again, this has been allowed to happen because they've forgotten that their fundamental driving ethical principle is to police without fear and favour. Yeah. And that's why the report calls for an ethical reset. My worry, though, Julia, is this, that the rot is now so deep that it's going to take very, very drastic surgery to stop it. It's either that or we get rid of the current policing model and start again.
I feel we're going to have to do that. I mean, there was another case in Leeds where a man, the police officer says he's being arrested because he's insulted the Prophet Muhammad, you know, the Muslim prophet, you know, calling him a rapist and things. And it's like, I mean, you know, we don't have a blasphemy law in this country, but for some reason the police seem to think that we do. Anyone is entitled to say anything they darn well want about anyone's religion or anyone's God. That is completely legal. And yet a man was arrested. And then we had this bizarre situation. Alistair Hilton, who's someone I actually follow on social media. Anyway, but he's a pub goer. He put the whole thing out on video. He says he was threatened by the police over social media videos, which he criticised his local Green councillor. He'd live streamed. He says he was accused of identifying this guy's home, which he didn't, but basically criticising about whether or not there should be outdoor seating outside a pub. Something utterly, nothing. Just a local little tiff. But it does appear that the Green councillor contacted the police, and the police decided to turn up in uniform as this man sat outside a pub from the Riverside in Chiswick in southwest London, very nice little area, and basically said, "Well, not arresting you, not threatening you. We're just warning you, that you can't, basically yourself, threaten this councillor," which he had not done. He's a voter who'd been critical of a local councillor, which he's entitled to do. Extraordinary that the police don't have time to arrest shoplifters, don't have time to do follow up if your phone is stolen. But amazingly, when no crime has been committed or alleged, turn up at a pub in uniform, two of them, to berate a man for legitimately criticising a democratically elected representative. I mean, that is properly sinister.
Yes, there are two things here. One, it gives the impression that the police have got nothing better to do because all the crime in Chiswick has been solved. Which is, I'm betting, I've not seen the stats, but I'm betting that is not the case, Julia. I'm betting that right now. But secondly, what since when was it the police's job to give people advice about crimes that aren't crimes and about crimes that haven't been committed on behalf of a councillor, on behalf of a politician? It's entirely wrong. The case that you mentioned as well in the chap in Leeds who was arrested because he'd said that the Prophet Muhammad was a rapist and a murderer. Well, I watched that video. There were a few possibilities there. They could have arrested him for other things. They could have arrested him for perhaps a breach of the peace. There's a number of things that they could have done. But to arrest him and then to say on camera that they are arresting him because he insulted the Prophet Muhammad, this tells us where our police force, particularly in West Yorkshire, where they are at. They are absolutely infused with Islamic ideology to the point that they can no longer distinguish between what is the law, British law, and what is Sharia law. And that should be deeply concerning. I'm more concerned about their response than about that one Leeds lad gobbing off perhaps a little inappropriately. I imagine that drink was probably involved in that as well.
But again, the police were the ones who said why they were arresting him. It was their reason, and again, it's not illegal. It is simply not a crime, and it must not be. But we do, to all intents and purposes, have a blasphemy law back now by the back door because of this. Just one final thing I want to ask you about. This outrageous case of this Rochdale grooming and rape gang leader who has been, we were talking about him on the show last week, Shabir Ahmed, released from prison on Thursday into a hostel after serving 14 years of the 22-year sentence he got for 30 child rape offences. Bearing in mind, that'll be the tip of the iceberg. He's basically been stripped of his British citizenship. He had renounced his Pakistani citizenship. He'd come here as a child, and under a stupid loophole in our immigration law, because he's a Commonwealth citizen, lived here for 5 years, before 1973, he's allowed to stay. Now, the Tories, Chris Philp, their Shadow Home Secretary, he has urged his counterpart, Shabana Mahmood, to adopt his proposed amendments to 2 bits of emergency legislation, basically backdate and say, this whole because you came here earlier loophole, 5 years thing. No, if you commit a crime, you are automatically up for deportation. There is simply no excuse for the government not to do this. We saved British steel in 1 day of emergency legislation. It had Commons vote, Lords vote and royal assent in 1 day. We can absolutely save British working class girls by changing that law. They could do it today if they wanted, couldn't they?
Yeah, they absolutely could. I mean, what I would do in this case is I would helicopter him out into the North Sea and stick him on a used sort of North Sea oil rig platform and let him stay there until we sorted out his citizenship. What we don't want is people like him inflicting fear upon his former victims, spreading his lies and his hate. And there has to be some process for getting him out of the country. And if that prompts, the European Union or lawyers or whoever to go up in arms, so what? Let's go up in arms. We're going to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
We're going to do it anyway.
If the Home Office is still going, my callers on my show on Thursday came up with a solution, within 5 minutes. If anyone at the Home Office can't come up with a solution to this, then I'm sorry, they should all be out of a job. So good to talk to you. Covered a lot of ground there. Harry Miller, former police officer and founder of Fair Cop, thank you. Henry Hill, listening to all that from The Critic. Your thoughts on what he has to say?
I mean, on the law, you're completely correct. Even if nothing else, you could just pass a law saying that you can deport this person.
Literally
and
have
anything
a two-line law.
Yeah, exactly. Parliament can actually do anything it likes, and it's important that we remember this. Whenever you get politicians saying, we can't...
Because the law says this.
It's not can't, it's won't. Right, it's
the whole point of being an MP is you can change the law. That's literally your job.
Exactly. On the policing thing, it would be an enormous job of work because you basically need to do to the police now a job on the scale of what happened after Macpherson, right? Because it needs comprehensive change at the top, it needs a comprehensive change of recruitment.
Hell of a lot of sackings.
A hell of a lot of sackings. And it might actually be easier to start again. And you think about things like the College of Policing, there didn't used to be one, right? It appears to be mostly a way of modernising the force and transmitting terrible ideas. Scrap it.
Absolutely. I would scrap them tomorrow. Honestly, I'm probably arrested those, but there we are, 11:48 it's time. We're going to take a break. We're going to be talking about the royals. Well, this relates to security, doesn't it? Prince Harry's not bringing Meghan and the kids to the UK. Well, not to London because of security fears. But where is he going to stay? Do we care? Maybe Nigel Farage has got a mate who can put him up somewhere. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk. The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer, talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions, to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julie Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk royals. We've not done that for a while, but I'm delighted to say it gives me an excuse to talk to Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Very good morning to you, Rupert.
Good morning, Julia. Are you feeling tired and emotional this morning?
I've got not emotional, because I have to say that's the first time I've ever seen my husband watch football without a beer in his hand. But it was 5:30 in the morning, so maybe a little early even for us. But certainly tired. Now I wonder whether Harry's going to be tired, get a bit of jet lag when he arrives in the UK. There's been all this toing and froing and umming and ahhing about will they, won't they? He's coming over to the Victor's Games. Is Meghan coming? Are the kids coming? Are they going to be reunited with their grandfather they've not seen in 4 years? What's actually going on?
No, I don't think anyone knows. I think the royal household are just tired with it. By all accounts, they offered accommodation. He then ummed and ahed.
In Buckingham Palace as well.
Yeah, and then they ummed and ahed, and they said, well, you've now told us too late. And also, they've got the thorny question of this court case, the verdicts coming out that he was obviously been involved in. We're going to hear the details of what the verdict is tomorrow.
Explain what this case is.
Well, it's basically related to going against the Daily Mail and phone hacking and finding out information through illegal means.
And we're going to get the result of that tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. And also, if he was then staying in a royal palace, then that all makes it sort of slightly uncomfortable for the king. So there's that element too. But actually, if you look at it, 1 minute the children are coming, 1 minute they're not coming. It is, I mean, EastEnders couldn't write this script. It really is just a soap opera that Harry's creating because he ums and ahs and thinks he's needs a sort of designer bells and whistles security. Yet you can see other members of the royal family just get on with it. He's also citing that he can't bring them to London, but he could bring them to somewhere else in Britain. So where does the security threat suddenly go easier?
And that I find a bit confusing because it's not entirely clear whether Meghan and the kids, whether Archie and Lilibet are actually going to come to the UK, but then they'll go and visit Diana's grave at Althorp and things like that. But here's the thing. You know me, look, I'm a Republican, OK, and I'm not a fan of how Harry and Meghan have behaved, and you know that. I still think he should have proper security. When we're talking about them getting proper security, we're talking about having someone there with a gun. He's clearly a kidnap threat, but given that he is an heir to the throne, very high profile, and he fought in Afghanistan for his country, and the kids. I mean, it seems to me that would be utterly reasonable for him to have that security. I've got no issue with that, and he's been battling with His Majesty's government on that as a security issue. I've got sympathy for him on that. Although I don't know why someone who's worried about security is living in California. Doesn't strike me as the safest place to live with your children. But there we are.
Well, this is the problem. It's not the King's decision. It is the Home Office's decision as to determine the security threat that could be around Harry. You can rest assured he won't be just left to flounder in this country without any security, because the last thing they need is something to happen to him.
Well, exactly.
What we're saying is the sort of bells and whistles, full-on security the working royals have. And that's what the RAVEC, the Home Office, have to decide. Of course, they'll be working out whether there's a threat. He hasn't helped himself by sort of creating himself to be a target in his books where he talks about the people he killed in Afghanistan. So he's been pretty brain dead about trying to make sure that he doesn't draw attention to himself. And he has all the time. And this is the problem. And I think, yes, he's coming to launch the Invictus Games on Friday. He's supposed to be going to the Royal Hospital in Chelsea, I think, tomorrow, around an event. But it's just this will he, won't he?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, Meghan doesn't really want to come here. And it's all
she knows she'd probably be booed in the street. I know there's a whole bunch of young women who are absolutely insanely obsessed with her. But actually, most of the British public take a very dim view of her. The thing I feel sorry for, genuinely, though, as much as I hate myself for even having an opinion on this, because I do have a life, is that the king, who is, advancing years, he's had cancer, that he has not seen these two grandchildren in 4 years. He's only met Elizabeth when she was a baby. I have to say, you just feel that, OK, the king could travel to California, yeah, he could, but it does just feel wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is wrong, and Harry could sort it out. But he could go privately. No fuss, no bother. Probably, for instance, go to Balmoral. Security would be absolutely perfect there. If the King's in residence, all the security you need, and could have a lovely Scottish holiday. Yeah. Why not?
But then you got the thing like Meghan's own dad doesn't get to see the kids. So she's cut off everybody, and he's sort of in that same net, and not seeing his brother and Kate. We understand. Apparently every other royal is going to be terribly busy with their diary this week.
Well, they will be. And this is the problem, because they're fed up. They just worry that then they see him, and then the next minute Harry goes and bleats to one of his favoured media outlets. Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting when this verdict comes out, because if it's against him, that will be a problem for him.
Because he's settled everything else, hasn't he? For large sums of money, we believe.
I think so, but this is the one that sort of could define the whole thing. And so for Harry, tomorrow is a big day, but you just wish he would. You said you were coming, just come here, sort it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the frustration for the royal household, and because he suddenly thinks he's a special case above and beyond everybody else.
There is also this issue, isn't there, where there's constant bleating and moaning about his terrible lot in life. Look, it's terrible his parents divorced, terrible that his mum died. I think it'd be terrible to be born into a royal family. Wouldn't wish it on my own worst enemy. To grow up with that fishbowl, awful everything. But it is just like, a lot of people are really struggling with their daily lives, putting food on the table, dealing with, ill health, looking after, elderly parents with Alzheimer's. So, people are dealing with stuff every single day. And there he is, multi-millionaire with his health, married, wife, 2 kids, and he's whinging and moaning. And there does come a point where people are going, seriously, be quiet.
You're absolutely right. Finding freedom, he said when he went, we're off now on our freedom flight. Give me a break. If they've got their freedom, then act like you've got your freedom. That's the way I take it. At the moment, it feels like he can't let go, and he wants to be treated as some really special case. And I have a degree of sympathy on the security thing. Nothing must happen to him. And I'm sure they won't allow something to happen to him.
You'd hope not. But, meanwhile, hopefully Meghan's going to sell some more jam, and that's the important thing. Rupert Bell, Talks Royal correspondent. Lovely to talk to you. One of the things I love, Henry Hill's here, one of the things I love about talking to Rupert is that so many royal correspondents do this whole, and the Queen thinks this, and it's like, never pretends any of that nonsense, and is as frustrated with them all as we are, which is fantastic. Do you think the whole thing about this is just all publicity? It's just look at me, look at me.
That's exactly it, right? None of the business ventures they've tried panned out. Harry was a working member of the royal family, which guaranteed him attention. Yeah. Then he separated himself. He could have gone to any number of Commonwealth countries and continued his duties. He went to California, and basically his only claim to fame, his only claim to revenue and attention is his connection to the royal family, which is why he keeps whipping up these controversies, because that's the only way that he gets any attention now.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? It really is. It's just very, very tedious. But I find myself reading it and I kind of hate myself. I feel dirty afterwards. I really, really do. Your thoughts on that, if you want to get in touch? I'll think less of you. I will think less if you call in on that, but I'll put your call on there. But I want to hear thoughts. You don't want to talk about the football? Well, sod you, I'm still going to talk about it. But we'll see talking a lot about Nigel Farage. Is he basically being targeted by the establishment and by the media in a way that, frankly, we're not seeing the same scrutiny of other politicians, including, have you heard of Andy Burnham? I believe he's going to be our next Prime Minister. We're going to talk about all of that and plenty more besides, lots more top guests. Do stay tuned. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon. This is Talk, the home of common sense. 2 minutes past midday is the time. If I'm sounding chirpy, I'm completely faking it. I, like most of the nation, I think the technical term is absolutely knackered today. Many of you have stayed up to watch the match. People like me just got up stupidly early to watch it in real time. I cannot believe I managed to do that without actually finding out the result, just ignoring all the work messages, just completely blanking them. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the match. If you want to get in touch, do get in touch. But I know a lot of you wanting to get in touch about Nigel Farage. And is he being targeted? Is this the establishment trying to stitch up leader reform because they're scared of him? Are we not getting enough scrutiny of some other people? I don't know. Not one day possible would be PM, but the guy's actually going to be the Prime Minister in just a week or so's time. I want to hear your thoughts on all of that. So whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you, as always, for joining us. And if you do miss anything from the show, you missed anything for the last couple of hours, go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Ian Duncan-Smith. We'll talk about Reform UK and Nigel Farage's generous, very rich, generous friends. I need to get me some of those people, I really do. NATO allies must step up defence spending immediately to 5% of GDP. That's what Donald Trump is going to be telling NATO allies at that NATO summit in Ankara tomorrow. And we're also going to be talking about, the joy of the weekend's Pride March in London. This is a bit I don't get. They get a whole month, right? It's a whole month of June, and then there's a Pride March in July. The whole of London, the whole of central London, bedecked, I've got to be honest with you, Nuremberg style, with the hanging trans pride progress flag, which in my view, very clearly homophobic and misogynistic, down Oxford Street and Regent Street. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Do get in touch. The number to call is 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged to the national rate and text cost one standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me for the whole show today is Henry Hill, political editor, critic. Afternoon.
Good afternoon
to you. Did you? I mean, presumably, you were at Silverstone yesterday. Maybe were you in London at all over the Pride weekend? Because it was, I've got to be honest with you, quite a battle getting through.
I was in London on Saturday, but because I'd had a been out basically all week, I basically spent Saturday at home, and therefore I managed to miss the navigation. Yeah, and prepare myself for what was to come.
The whole of central London was like cordoned off.
It is baffling. So I managed to avoid all of it, and I agree with you about the thing. The progress flag. There's all sorts of arguments. One, it's hideous. Two, unlike the original Pride flag, which was made public domain, progress flag is private, and so you have to get permission to use it. And also,
really,
yeah. Someone kept the copyright over it. But the third one is
that tells you everything.
The symbolism of the original Pride flag was like, it's a rainbow. All of these, it includes everybody by default, right?
Yep.
I actually think that where's my stripe of the rainbow is like a bad...
straight and white and middle class, and I want my own stripe.
But it's just a bad right-wing satire of the flag, right? And that is the actual animating principle of the progress flag, is we need to keep adding stripes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at some point there's not going to be any room left. It's just going to be a big blur, isn't it? Anyway, we will talk about that. Delighted to say I'm joined right now by Sir Ian Duncan-Smith MP, former Conservative Party leader. Very, very good afternoon to you, Sir Ian.
Well, I was going to say afternoon, Julia.
I mean this very, very kindly. You look as exhausted as the rest of us in this office. Did you stay up for the match by any chance?
Elated, but exhausted. You're quite right.
What did you make of the match?
Well, it's only England that end up in these situations where it's all on the line right till the last moment, and it depends on how big their heart is and their character. They either come through or they don't come through. And I must say, I think this is defining who England really are. And the answer is they play for each other. They're a team. They're not a bunch of individuals. And what I really thought was great was the way they defied the Mexicans in the Azteca statement at 7,000 feet high, and they beat them. Nobody beats the Mexicans in the Azteca Stadium because it's so high they can't breathe. And yet this phenomenal team was so determined not to let that get them down, they fought through it. And you think all the things before they even kicked the ball were against them.
Yep.
no way on earth they should have won that match because nobody else has won there for so long.
Exactly. They've lost 2 out of 89 matches. Well, now it's 3 out of 90. They look pretty shell-shocked, the Mexican team and the Mexican fans. How do you rate our chances? Not against Brazil on Saturday night in this quarter-final, but against Norway.
Well, I think I'd rather have been playing Brazil looking at it because I thought England would beat them because they really didn't look like a team to me, a bunch of individuals. Norway are a different kettle of fish at all because I watched that match yesterday and I thought Norway deserved to win. They had a game plan. They knew how to execute it. They've got a very good striker. We've got a very good striker as well. But Norway, has a very good striker. It's Man City centre forward, and he just bided his time. He didn't do very much at all. Unlike Kane, who's everywhere, inspiring, catching the ball, passing it on. He doesn't do much of that. He just
scoring penalties, losing penalties. A bit of everything.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, what do you want your striker for?
Yeah.
You want him that when he gets the ball in the area, he scores a goal, and that's what he did.
So I have a feeling you'd rather just stick to football for the whole of this interview, but I'm going to ruthlessly get you onto politics. Sorry about that. Can we talk about Reform UK? Because very much in the news, front page Sunday Times, investigation into Nigel Farage and his help, support, financial help and staffing from his big mate, millionaire George Cottrell, a man who is a convicted fraudster for a sort of a crypto scam. He served time in American prison. Not long ago, since they've been friends. Long-time friend, there's no doubt at all. You'll know him around Westminster. He's someone who'd be seen in the local pubs, been around a long time over Brexit. This follows, of course, the revelations of that £5 million gift from Christopher Harborne, a crypto billionaire now living in Thailand, for which Nigel Farage is currently being investigated by a parliamentary committee. Nigel Farage said, look, done nothing wrong. This is, he's just as a friend, he stayed at his place. Money, any support and help he got from staff and the like were before he was an MP or even considering becoming an MP again, or attempting to again, and that there's nothing to see here. A lot of my callers, a lot of people who support reform are saying this is a little bit of a witch hunt. This is about basically the establishment trying to stitch up Nigel Farage. Do you think there's any truth in that?
Well, I'm sure that a number of the parties, Labour, Liberals, that sort of thing, Greens, are certainly trying to make sure that something happens to him. I would be certain of that. But on the other side of this, all I would say is, look, don't moan about it. You knew what the process was. You knew what the rules are when you decided to run for Parliament. And when you got in, you were told what the rules are. I mean, it does sometimes become a witch hunt, but it's a witch hunt after the event. So the problem is that you can't just take a chunk of money and not declare it. And they should have... I mean,
but his argument is, I wasn't in Parliament, I wasn't planning to go back to Parliament, it was personal help. He needed social media help. He was working on a, star on a TV channel.
But my answer to that is very simple. I'm not sit here now. Look at what it is and declare it. It doesn't do you any harm. You tell everybody, this is what I got, that's where it is, it's no problem, I'm keeping it, it's no big deal. Then there isn't a case against you because at least you've been honest about it.
Yeah.
It's the element of doubt that says to people, well, why didn't he declare it? Why is he not being so honest about it? And then suddenly the sort of cover-up is worse than the reality. And I think that's where we are at the moment. And so, fine, of course, that other parties, even your own party at times, and I bear witness to that, likes to get at you and uses all sorts of ghastly devices. But the old rule is absolutely clear, which is be honest, be open, and don't give people a chance to have a go at you.
OK, here's the thing, though. Every political party takes big money donations from very rich people. I've long said, regardless of which political party it is or what cause it is, I don't want anyone being able to give. And I used to think 5,000. OK, I'll stick to 10,000. £10,000, any individual, any organisation. It's going to have to be either public taxpayers' money or it's going to have to just be donations in small sums from people. I want big money out of our politics. I think we're in very dangerous territory. Your party has happily taken some very, very big donations over the years, as have the Labour Party, Greens, Lib Dems as well. Every party does it. Is it possible for someone to say, oh, I want to give you a few million quid and not expect something in return?
Well, if they expect it in return, it's my experience, even when, dealing with lots of different parties, by and large, they don't get it. The reality is when you give money to a political party, you give it with its general beliefs are yours, and you share them, and you want them to do well at the next election.
It's just out of the goodness of their hearts. It was not going to help their business or them personally.
Well, it may help their
Come
business
on.
in terms of actually having, if you vote for the Conservatives, you give money to the Tories, you know that they're the ones that will probably lower your taxes, make sure that that's general. The point I would make, though, in all of this is you have to be open about it. You have to register it all. You have to be able to deny that there was anything you did that was to give somebody something. Don't go sitting next to somebody who's donated huge sums of money with you at a dinner, as Robert Jenrick got involved in, rather stupid judgment. All that sort of thing is what you need to have antenna alert to the fact that you're able to justify that when you took the money, no favours, no individual issues were transgressed.
Do you understand, though, why, and I've interviewed Nigel Farage about this a couple of weeks ago, that people, most of us don't live in worlds where people give us large sums of money for nothing. Unless they're a family member, people giving you an inheritance or something. Someone might get, their mum's house or something, when they die. But it's not the same as saying, oh, hello, I rather agree with your views. I live on the other side of the world, or I'm a billionaire or millionaire. I think I'll just give you a huge sum of money beyond most normal people's wildest dreams. A lottery.
Well, they have to be British citizens, which is critical. But the main point really is, OK, well, if we don't like the idea of people giving private donations, then it's the taxpayer that will have to subsidise parties, as happens in some of the European countries. Yep. Now, lots of taxpayers may say, I don't want to give a party I don't agree with money. And we're already taxed enough. We already have to pay for the BBC licence fee. Yeah. Why should we have to pay for politicians? We don't want them. Well, the trouble is, democracy does need money. Otherwise, you can't function, you can't campaign, you can't do stuff. So your choice is one that says, do I protect the taxpayers or not? And the answer, I think, is it's not a great system. We're nowhere near where the Americans are. No. We're far, far
But we're in that direction.
Yeah, but we have greater rules about what you can dispense during the course of an election, what you can't. We are set with figures. They're not in the US. So for us, really, this is the best of the bad job, as it were, that you have to take money. But you must be clear about it and tell everybody.
And let's talk about overseas voters moving to the UK could face a £100,000 donation cap for the year. I mean, I just think, that's an easy one for me. Lots of talk, though, if Nigel Farage, in relation not to the stuff that's been in the Sunday Times in the last weekend, but to this £5 million donation, or gift, he says, for his security, stroke a gift, his money. He says he hasn't spent it, from Christopher Harborne from Thailand. That a lot of word around Westminster seems to be that he could actually get a big slap on the wrist, could get a suspension, a temporary suspension from Parliament. If it's 10 days or more, that could open the possibility of a recall petition in his Clacton constituency. And by all accounts, the Tories are targeting that seat, especially give the concern that the Reform would have that his big rival Rupert Lowe, just up the road, of course, in Great Yarmouth, for Restore, will be running a candidate themselves, and that could split that Reform-style vote. Are you thinking there's even a possibility that Nigel Farage could actually be unseated?
Well, it's difficult to unseat a sitting politician. You have to have very strong evidence that they have not just transgressed the rules, but have, in a venal way, used the system for their own devices. And I think you've seen a number of them have had recall petitions. We introduced the recall petition. But I don't... my instinct is what he should be doing, instead of complaining or moaning about people stitching him up or going after him, which is what politics is about. Sadly, you may not like it, but that's what you signed up to when you became a member of Parliament and the leader of a party. What he should be doing is saying, look, OK, I got this wrong. I got this wrong and I should have checked. I didn't check. I apologise gratuitously to everybody. It's not what I do normally. I understand this. I'm registering it. And I should have done it before. I apologise, mea culpa. If he'd done that from the beginning, then people would have been going, oh, OK, well, there's not much to debate here.
That's the thing,
but it's the decision to try and hide from it. It's what causes all the problems.
Well, there's no doubt there's a lot of scrutiny, not just of Nigel Farage's finances and supporters, but also of reform policies and indeed of Conservative policies. And we're seeing a lot more Conservative policies coming out from your leader, Kemi Badenoch. How much scrutiny is there, do you think, of Andy Burnham, given that we're talking about, with the other two, potential prime ministers in a few years' time? we're almost nailed on, are we not? Then we got to end of this week, we've got the nominations open for the Labour leadership. Really no expectation now that Al Carnes or anyone else is going to run against Andy Burnham. On the 20th of July, he's likely, 99.9999% is going to go to the palace. He's going to become our next Prime Minister. And I don't think anyone, and I fear I include Andy Burnham in this, has a clue what he wants to do as Prime Minister, other than moving Downing Street operations partly to the north.
Yes, it does make you wonder why it is that in our parliamentary system we could have got ourselves into this situation where a sitting Prime Minister isn't actually defeated in the party. He just resigns because he doesn't believe he can win the vote. So we have no scrutiny of whether or not that's the case. And then the second thing is the challenger is a challenger without a success. In other words, he hasn't challenged the Prime Minister and beaten him. So now what we have is a man that I know him very well. I used to play football with him, and he's a very easy person to get on with. Gets on pretty much with everybody that he meets, mostly because he never seems to contradict you. Even though
Mr. People Pleaser.
But the main thing is that we've had no chance to scrutinise what he said so far, or to ask what does it mean. For example, I was with a group of students today, and they were looking at the speech that he made, and one of them said to me, "What does he mean? There's no second chance, when this is his second chance." And then somebody else said, "What do you mean by change? When I thought the last government was elected to change. So is this change the change? No second chance means what is it? The first chance or a third chance?" And there's no detail.
Sounds like the students are given more scrutiny than an awful lot of the gushing media broadcasters.
That's what worried me, was that to most people looking at this, it all looks very vague. They have no idea who he is. They've no idea what he really wants. Something about localism, something about turning powers back. Every politician I've ever met has talked about that.
Yeah.
Every politician. Some have even tried to do it. And I'm all for it. If you want to rebuild those cities, get them back again, it's a big deal. We've got to do it. But that means bringing back proper manufacture. And it doesn't. That's a big issue about costs. So you've got some big issues about taxation, investment, costs. Nothing of that has been spoken about. Net zero is another one of these things that's parked in the way. He wants to give that ridiculous man who runs it a job as the Chancellor. I'm Ed Miliband, for God's sake. He's part of the reason why the UK is doing so badly at the moment, is because all the cost. Now he wants to destroy the British car industry by penalising them if they don't build enough electric cars when they say we can't sell them, and then allowing China to dump electric cars and batteries.
I hate to tell you, I'd like to point out, Tories brought that in.
I was against it.
I know you were. You're always against it. But the Tories, there are so many things that Labour have done the last 2 years were brought in by the Tories.
I warned them about this,
I
said at the time, be careful what you wish for. I have to say, in the last few years, it doesn't matter who's in opposition. I've been in opposition just about the whole time.
I know. That's why we like having you on. Can I go to? I mean, one of the other big issues, of course, we're still waiting to find out what Andy Burnham, thinks about spending on defence. We've been handed the absolutely outrageous poison chalice of Keir Starmer, which is that we're going to increase defence spending by not enough by another 15 billion, but apparently not actually funded at all. So he's just dumped that on into Andy Burnham's in tray. But one of his last acts, certainly on the international statesman scene, for Keir Starmer will be tomorrow. He's going to be in Ankara for a 2-day NATO summit. We already know that Donald Trump, front page of the newspapers today, is basically, technical term, gunning for European leaders who are not spending enough on defence. None of this 2.7% malarkey. He's saying, I want 5%. That's where European NATO allies should be spending in terms of percentage of GDP. And it should be heading for it now, not a vague aim for 3.5%, as we've now got, maybe in 2035, which realistically no one thinks we're going to achieve at the current rate. Is Donald Trump right?
Yes, I think he is. I think the biggest problem we face now, the biggest threats that we face since the 1930s, the rise of China, the power of China, China's financing of Russia. Russia couldn't have continued this war if China hadn't been financing and rearming them. North Korea is involved in the same process with Russia. Iran has been providing them with those drones, huge numbers of drones. That's how it earns its money. All of this going on. There are plenty of other countries too. We've now reached the stage where more countries in the world are totalitarian states like China than are democracies. everything is under threat right now, and yet we're kowtowing to China, and we're going to them to destroy our manufacturing industry by giving them all the business. The whole thing is mad, and he's right. If you look at Poland, Poland is almost at 5% now. Yeah. And most of the East European countries are heading in that direction. France is hopeless. I mean, France is worse than us, frankly, which is hard to say. We were one of the leaders only a few years ago. We were one of the leaders in defense spending. We are now down at about 30, I think, in the scale of people that are defending European defense. And we're really low in Europe. Even Greece now is doing better than we are. And even his latest announcement, which Trump isn't stupid in that way, whatever else you think about him, he will have spotted that it hasn't even been funded. Yeah. The MOD wanted 28 billion as a de minimis. In other words, that is the absolute limit of what they could manage to operate with. They've been offered 15. We know that's a complete mirage. Yeah. There's no 5 billion to make that happen. So they're back to where they were when they were having around 2 people resign, which is 10 billion. Yeah. It's all they can find. And a wish and a promise at the next spending review, they'll get more money. I have to tell you, this government is likely to go down in history as the biggest appeasement government known since the 1930s. Yeah, get your pieces of white paper out ready. So Ian Doug-Smith covered a lot of ground there. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much, former Conservative Party leader. Henry Hill, do you want to come back in on the defence issue? What is there to disagree with? I think it's actually difficult because within political memory, you know, 2000, Britain had a world-class armed forces. We were a serious, significant player. Not obviously British Empire level. America and Russia still bigger. Now, people haven't clocked, I think, just how bad it is, right? Army generals are saying that we couldn't deploy a brigade. Do you know how many soldiers in a brigade? 5,000 men, right? That, like, it's nothing. We can't protect the Falklands. Last year. We couldn't even protect the Cyprus base. Right, we couldn't protect, can't send a ship with the right missiles to Yemen. When Starmer was last year talking about deploying the British Army to protect Ukraine, crucially, after a ceasefire, so they wouldn't be doing any fighting, but he was like, what have we said? And the army said we can't actually put 10,000 troops in Ukraine, even not to fight, right? Yeah. The extent to which our military force has decayed would catch a lot of voters off guard, I think. And meanwhile, the threats keep mounting from Russia. And again, when everybody who knows about this stuff tells you we are in danger and we don't act, I'm sorry, again, Keir Starmer should hang his head in shame. I mean, again, Tories failed, they should have been ramping up, but you know, he came in, you know, the ramping up of the threat has absolutely happened even more under his watch, and he's failed to take any action. Your thoughts on that? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Still getting calls in on Nigel Farage and whether or not this is just an establishment stitch up against him. Also about, well, basically, should kids be going to school even if they stayed up all night? How the hell do they manage to stay up all night or got up early like I did to watch that match last night? Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk. The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Business Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much for joining us. Henry Hill's still here as well. And you are on the phone line. Say 344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Heather's done just that. She's in Nottinghamshire. Heather, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, hi, Julia. I just wanted to ring about Nigel Farage.
Mm-hmm.
I think, without a shadow of a doubt, it's a witch hunt and a stitch-up, in your words. Nigel Farage has been around the block. And he's not naive or stupid. I don't believe that he would have left himself open for this criticism on purpose.
But then he could easily have just declared it. Not any of this. It could all have been declared, and then it wouldn't be an issue. As Ian Duncan Smith, he's not even in the same party as him, and he was saying, look, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I also believe that the parliamentary rules are set there for a reason, and if he doesn't believe that it was anything to do with his becoming an MP, then he was perfectly entitled to not declare it. And I kind of think, from a human point of view, his life has been made a misery, and he's entitled to be fearful and everything else. He's been attacked in the street.
The security, I completely agree with you. But he hasn't spent a penny of this on security. He told us he hasn't spent the money yet, even though he said it was a gift, and then he said it was for security.
But if he hasn't spent any of the money yet, it doesn't mean to say that he's not going to either.
That's a fair point. Well, look, when this story first came out, again, I was defending on the fact because I know personally, the threats that he faces, and we've seen. I mean, goodness me, how many court cases have there been? And the left basically laughing at, oh yeah, just throw something in his face. Let's hope it's a milkshake and not acid. That's the territory we're in. But here's the thing: the rules are very straightforward. Basically, if there's any doubt, you declare it. That's kind of. That's the deal. And I struggle. I say I like Nigel Farage. I support a load of his policies. We are old friends. And as I put to him and I put to his, his colleagues like Richard Tyson and others, on and off air, it's just like no one in the real world says, yeah, I'm just going to give someone 5 million quid or, yeah, come and, I'm going to provide your staff for you unless they're going to get something in return. That's what people think.
Yeah, maybe. But then you look at the by-election in Markerfield and it's come out that the chap who gave up his seat is going to get a nice big seat with Burnham. So it works with all of the parties. And
I agree with you.
If you're going to start throwing stones, let's start throwing them at all the other places as well, because I'd be interested to know how the front bench have all become multi-millionaires on £90+ thousand a year.
They're not. I mean, they're not multi-millionaires on 99 grand a year. I mean, they're not. Some people, again, plenty of people go into Parliament because they've already made their money and then they can afford to take what for them would be a massive pay cut. I mean, I'm in awe of those people. Like, God knows why they want to do it.
But there's an awful lot sitting there that weren't rich before they got in there, so there's question marks over them as well.
I don't know who you're talking about there, genuinely, because we know they have to declare. Even if you're a journalist working in the Commons, you get access to that. You have to declare. I did a speech for X and I got that. You saw Angela Rayner. Bizarrely, people were paying her tens and tens of thousands of pounds to give speeches. I mean, I don't know why they'd want to do that, but they do. I mean, at least Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage give a good speech. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're actually funny to listen to.
But I think the bottom line is, for every time there's a news story that comes out about Nigel Farage, my brain now shuts off because I think he's being stitched up. And for each story, my support for him goes up and up and up.
Do you think it's going to be the same?
A witch hunt.
The same as with Trump, where the Democrats basically and the left-wing American media basically went, we're going to go for him because they didn't try and do any of this stuff until he was running again. I have to say, I think they were banged to rights on a number of the cases they brought against him, but it was they basically were going to he's going to have convictions, and at that point he then of course won't be able to run for office. Didn't make any difference. Support went up.
Yeah, I think they're certainly treading on their own toes. It's working against them, not for them.
Very interesting. Heather, great call. Thank you so much. Let's take a call on a completely different issue, the England match last night, and indeed what's happened this morning since, from Dave, who is in Leeds. Good afternoon to you, Dave.
Good afternoon, Julia.
First of all, I need to establish...
Well done for staying up for the match.
You stayed up?
No, I was working, but well done to you for staying up for the game.
I got up early. I couldn't stay up. I was, honestly, I spent too many years getting up early. I can't do that anymore. My brain, my body clock's going to be different. So you were working, so you didn't get... Were you, like, watching the highlights?
No, I can't in the job I do. I was just busy working.
Have you got a proper job? What's your job?
I work in a large warehouse.
Right, he's got a proper job. He actually has to do stuff instead of sitting there at his desk pretending to work.
Physically. I mean, I caught the radio a little bit when I had a break through the night, and I think at that time it was 2-1 to England last time I sort of caught it.
Right, yeah. So you managed to vaguely keep track, but you're at work this morning. What happened?
Yeah. Right. My son goes to a school. I live in Leeds, and my son goes to a school in Bradford, just over the border from where I am.
Yeah.
And he was staying with my sister last night because he was staying with his cousins who all wanted to watch the game.
Yeah.
So my sister's not working today, so she says, "Oh, I don't mind having him, and I'm 10 minutes from the school where they all are. They can all stay at mine and watch the match." So that's great. But I get a phone call from her about 7:45 this morning, really irate, saying, "I can't believe it. They've closed the blooming school down. It's an emergency closure."
Emergency closure. What for?
Yes, I still don't know. I got a message. I got a message about an hour ago saying, we'll update you soon about what's happening. We're still closed. Blah,
if anyone gets out of bed, we'll give you a call.
Well, my sister actually said they must all have a hangover. The staff. That's why they're shut.
I mean, if there's an emergency, right, OK, there's no electricity in the school, there's been flooded, there's been a fire, then you could understand it, but they've given no reason.
No reason. It's actually in the local press. It's in the local paper this morning. It's on their website, the local TNA, and it's saying that this school's closed for an emergency today, but no reason given at all.
Absolutely. I mean, again, if it is just... Basically, no one's turned up because everyone's knackered from watching the footy last night. That's outrageous. I mean, your view was he can stay up and watch... How old's your son, by the way?
13.
30. You can stay up and watch the match, but you still got to do your stuff in the morning. You've got to go to school.
Definitely. My sister was... He said she was under strict orders to make sure that he goes to school with her lads.
Yep.
She's got lads about the same age. One's a year younger, one's a year older. And I said, make sure they all get up and go. She said, I will do, don't worry. She said, I'll make sure. And she said, they all got up. Bless them. She said, they're all having their breakfast. They're all... And then I heard a whoop of delight, and one of the lads said, oh, school's closed.
To be fair, when we were at school, Dave, do you remember ever learning anything at all in the last couple of weeks of term in July? I mean, they put on videos, for goodness sake. Dave, great call. Thank you very much. Will you let our team know? Will you get in touch if and when you find out what the, quote, school emergency was?
Yes, I will, yeah, because I'm intrigued myself.
I bet you are, Dave. Thank you very much. Thank God for family looking after the kids. Henry Hill, we were chuckling about this. Come on.
I mean, you do have to hope there's a real reason, right? Because, I mean, it's fun to joke about, but for a lot of parents... Yeah. They can't be discovering that they
You're on 0 hours contract. I can't just like randomly take the day off.
No childcare at no notice. I mean, that's an absolute nightmare. So you have to assume that there would be a real reason. Because when I was growing up, even if the school had to shut for like snow, they'd still be there. Yeah. Right.
I'd say that's my thing.
You could drop the kids off.
You should always. You might not be. No, you're still having my kid. Put them over the fence. Your problem. Yeah. But there we are. 12:35 is the time. We are going to be talking to TalkSport reporter Nick Ellaby about last night's match and what next for the England team. But as you know, of course, we have some exciting news to share with you from our friends at TalkSport. Is it still exciting after this length of time? With the World Cup well underway, TalkSport, in the meantime, have teamed up to create a lager. It's called So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. You can find your nearest pub by visiting talksport.com/so good. 18 plus, obviously. Please drink responsibly, just as you didn't last night. And with the World Cup in full swing, here at Talk, we are celebrating in style. That's why we're giving you the chance to boost your bank balance with a massive £26,000 in tax-free cash for a summer you won't forget. Here's how to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Henry Hill is still with us, and now we're joined by TalkSport reporter and Nick Ellaby as well. Also a little bit, everyone's putting their game face on, but it's their post-game sort of exhaustion that is showing through.
I am so happy I stayed up last night.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I mean, literally, we were talking about it over at TalkSport, and actually we've been talking about you as well, Julia, because you explained how you watched the game this morning on a rerun, and, you know...
And managed not to know the result. I mean, literally, phone down, iPad on you know, airplane mode. I don't want to see anything at all.
And actually, some of us thought that was probably quite a good way to do it. I mean, I was out watching Brazil-Norway, which kicked off at 9 p.m, so we're playing Norway on Saturday in the quarter-final at 10 p.m, England's quarter-final of this World Cup. They beat Brazil 2-1. I was out watching that, had a couple of drinks, not too many.
That was a couple.
And then got home and I thought, should I have a 1 hour nap before the game? No, stayed up, and it was one of the best experiences I've had watching England.
Well, this is it. I'm too old to be staying, and I've had too many years doing early shifts, so I'm sure you've done plenty of those over the years at TalkSport, that actually just couldn't possibly stay up. I would have just been fast asleep through the whole thing. But doing the early start. But the reality is, I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to stay up all night. It's going to be miserable and it's not going to be worth it. But getting up for that match was like the best decision ever, to be able to watch the whole thing. Would have been a bit in trouble if there'd been extra time, and I have to say there were a few moments in the injury time that I was a bit worried.
11 minutes of added on time.
I mean, everyone's stomach, the entire nation's stomachs were like this. But it was genuinely a brilliant match.
No, it really was. I mean, I think we were talking about how good it was. We're trying to sort of put a number on it, or put a sort of time frame. We've got Henry Winter over at TalkSport, who's been, I think he's covered about 8 World Cups, and he said that was England's best performance in his 35 years of doing the job. In terms of my lifetime, I mean, I remember we beat the Dutch 4-1 in Euro '96. That's always hailed as maybe England's greatest sort of modern performance.
Oh, you were about 4 then?
No, I was 11. I was 11, sorry.
Everyone remembers their World Cups from around that time.
Yeah, well, my first World Cup was USA '94. We weren't there.
Yeah.
So actually, I kind of gave me a love of watching international football. But you know, to a man, and including the German manager, were fantastic. Declan Rice got booked in the first minute. He played the whole game on a yellow card. Jarell Quansah filling in at right back. Yes, he got a red card. Then Ezri Konsa came in, filled in for him at right back. Dan Burn, who most people laughed at his selection, huge defender from Newcastle, sometimes found a little bit wanting at the top level. But Thomas Tuchel, I think, has thought about this. What if we are playing with 10 men and we're having to basically dig in with 20 minutes to go. Dan Burn is the man you want. And actually, great stat, no other substitute has ever come on and made more clearances than Dan Burn did last night. He came on in the 75th minute, he made 6 clearances, including throwing his massive body on the line to block an overhead kick. As well, Jude Bellingham, once again...
Can we just talk... Let's talk about the stars of the match.
Yeah.
Those two
goals.
They're
all stars, honestly.
Within just over a minute between them, absolutely, I mean, they were actually... brilliant goals. I mean, they were stonking goals.
Fantastic, and Bellingham and Harry Kane are now working up this brilliant partnership. Wayne Rooney.
I love it when they face off against each other after a goal, and you can feel that. But that was something crucial. Actually, a lot of people pointing out, and Jim White was pointing out a little bit earlier, that actually, you know, they're playing as a team.
Really are.
It's not just a bunch of top players. They're playing. You felt their camaraderie.
And on the BBC last night, Wayne Rooney said something similar because I think they've mentioned that, you know, Jude Bellingham mentioned that we've got it done better than these players that, you know, so-called golden generation that came before us. And Wayne Rooney said, actually, do you know what, we kind of never turned up.
Yeah.
Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham together, as you say, developing an incredible partnership. I mean, those are the two. If we can win this World Cup, we need those two to do it.
Yeah.
But as well, Jordan Pickford probably had his best game in an England shirt.
Some amazing saves.
I mean, and also coming out for those crosses. I mean, he's not the tallest goalkeeper, but he was punching everything away.
Yeah.
And also,
to be fair, most of our players were a lot taller than the Mexicans.
And for a
quite
reason.
Noticeably.
So Thomas Tuchel has picked a tall squad for that very reason.
Yeah.
Set pieces are a huge strength of ours.
And Kane is on 6 goals now in this World Cup.
Kane's on 6, and then you've got Haaland on 7, who scored 2 more last night.
Right. Well, let's not confuse them with Kane. So the other crucial match, you say, Brazil were beaten by Norway.
Yeah.
And so our next match, our quarter-final, Saturday night.
10 p.m.
Not people dared not to. I knew me dead.
We can all stay up for that one.
We can manage that one. Is against Norway. Would you rather have Norway or Brazil?
Do you know what? I think I'd probably rather have Norway. I mean, Norway beat Brazil fairly comfortably in the end, but Brazil spurned a lot of good chances.
But that doesn't mean Norway are brilliant. That's both goals from Haaland.
No, I think if we can keep Haaland quiet and if we can stop the supply to Haaland, which is what the aim of the game will be for us, then I think there's absolutely no reason why England can't set up a semi-final with Argentina.
And let's just go back to all the concerns we had last week ahead of this match about the sort of, you know, Azteca Stadium, is in Mexico. It's basically they're playing a home game in a stadium at very high altitude, 7,000 feet. Very little time for the England team to acclimatise them. There was that big thing about moving the match forward, which again, not necessarily good for the team because they want that any extra hours has got to be good because it's supposed to take 2 weeks to acclimatise.
There was some talk the policing operation might have had an impact on that, and maybe FIFA were thinking about that as well as the weather. And you know, it turned out that the match was postponed by 1 hour. But I mean, in terms of the altitude, England had a very difficult decision because you need to acclimatise, and if you can't do that, the received wisdom is that you arrive as close to kick-off as possible. Yeah. They had to arrive. In the end, it was 48 hours, which can be a little bit tricky. You could see, you know, all the players were out on their feet at the end of the game, but we've got a very strong bench, and those players came on. Morgan Rogers did a lot of running as well. But I
mean, they left nothing on nothing on the pitch. They went for it. But it was interesting, all these fears, and that's come on, you know, even though we're ostensibly the favourites, you know, given the home stadium, and it was very noticeable. The Mexicans, most of the spectators were Mexicans. I think there was 3,000 England fans there officially, and very loud. I mean, it was such a loud stadium. That did have an impact in terms of the players who've been shouting to each other on the pitch. Let's have a little watch and a listen of Harry Kane's post-match interview with the BBC and what's happened to his voice.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. We had to fight. We had to find something. I've just been sitting there. I can't really talk, but all the occasion, the team, everything against us, we found a way.
Do you know what he sounds like? He sounds like sort of Miss Piggy in with Kermit, talking to Kermit the Frog.
He sounds a little bit like Darren Cann, who's the guy that's doing the refereeing expertise for the BBC. But he actually got his voice back. By the time he'd spoken to TalkSport, he would actually sounded a lot better. I mean, they were singing, as well as shouting to each other on the pitch. They all sing Wonderwall at the end of the game.
I'm of that era. It still does it for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's become an anthem, and obviously everyone knows the words, and the lyrics are kind of, you know, ambiguous enough that you can put your own meaning to them, and that has now become the moment between the fans and the players, singing Wonderwall to each other at the end of the game. And you mentioned, they did play as a team. Gareth Southgate, we know, did a huge amount of work in reconnecting the fans with the team. But Thomas Tuchel, what he's done is he's just sort of come in and said, look, he's cleared out all this rubbish. He said, what we're here to do is win this World Cup. I'm not going to talk about any of the politics. I'm just going to focus on winning this tournament. Well, and they're all in it together.
Can we mention the politics, though? Because it's an extraordinary situation with this US striker. I'm going to mispronounce his name.
Florin Balogun.
Thank you. Yeah, I've definitely been mispronouncing it. But basically, he was going to face a one-match ban against Belgium.
Yeah.
And he's basically, extraordinarily, America complained, including the American president, Donald Trump, who called his big mate, the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, and that one-match ban was basically cancelled. Even UEFA have said this crosses a red line. What do you make of that decision?
Well, I mean, I think what it does is it kind of brings the whole idea of, the referee's decision. It makes an absolute mockery of it. So what FIFA have done is they've overturned the suspension. They haven't sort of overturned the red card, but they've overturned Balogun's one-game suspension.
But if you get a red card in that scenario, you get a suspension.
Sure, but there is precedent. So they did this with Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo received a red card in the qualifiers, and he was supposed to have missed the first 2 games of this World Cup, suspended. FIFA then suspended that suspension, and they also had to do that with a number of other players, including Ecuador's Caicedo as well, because, what it looks like is that FIFA are trying to make sure the big stars have their moment and not
basically more people are going to watch, and that's more money, like the rehydration breaks and the like.
But there's a huge war between UEFA and FIFA, a bit of a power struggle at the moment, various things. I mean, UEFA say that this decision crossed the red line, they call it incomprehensible, and Sepp Blatter, of all people, the former president of FIFA, has come out and said that, political phone calls shouldn't be making this, and
wow,
FIFA shouldn't be...
Sepp Blatter saying that.
Well, I know. You've seen that Spider-Man meme with all the Spider-Men pointing at each other.
Yeah,
very much situation like that.
Your thoughts on this, Henry Hill? I mean, he didn't stay up for the match because he had a very good excuse, another sporting event.
Yeah, I was at Silverstone, but I did end up watching the highlights. I think, as what we were saying earlier, is that even if you're, corrupt...
Yeah.
The only
Try
way...
to be more subtle about it.
But the only way you can get all these bribes if you're at FIFA is if the game itself, the integrity of the game, holds, right?
Yeah.
The moment you cross that line, the moment it looks like people can pull in political favours, not just to get extra breaks for advertisers or to, get the cup hosted somewhere with a hideous climate that practices slavery and all the rest of it, but instead to actually get a decision changed that affects the game, that crosses... a fundamental line.
I think it's going to come back to haunt them.
Well, we want Sakir Starmer to give Gianni Infantino a ring and see if he can get Jarell Kwanzaa off the hook for the game of the weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, just pay the bribe. Everyone else does. It's just cheaper that way, if you ask me. Anyway, Lico, it'd be great to have you in. You go and get some sleep at some point.
A little bit later, yeah.
TalkSport reporter Nick Ellerby there. 12:48 is time. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, going to be talking about another big event at the weekend, London's Pride March. What I don't understand is why is it in July when they've had a whole month for the march in June, but it happened. And, I've got a bit of an issue with the flags. We're going to talk about all that up next. This is Talk. the thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:51 is the time. Well, we've been talking about the World Cup, but obviously there have been other events going on, and let's not get too London-centric, but an awful lot of places have been celebrating Pride. Now, Pride Month used to be about gay people, gay, lesbian and bisexual people coming out, being open and proud, something that wasn't something they had to be ashamed of or was criminalised, and the rainbow flag will fly, and there'll be parades and marches and a celebration of being happy and proud of being gay. Now it's become a much, much bigger thing. It doesn't seem to always be about being gay at all. It seems to be mostly about being trans or queer or pretty much everything else in the plus category of the LGBTQIA plus, whatever it is. And we've seen well, not just a whole month for the Pride Month in the last month. I mean, your supermarket, your local council, goodness knows where, the flag is everywhere, isn't it? But on Saturday, Pride in London was held, despite the fact it was the 4th of July, not June, when Pride Month is being held. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, sent one out of his many, many tweets that he puts out, always with replies not allowed, saying, today we celebrate our incredible LGBTQIA plus communities and the diversity that makes our city so special. Pride is both a celebration and a protest, and I'll always stand with you as we fight for equality and a fairer London for everyone. And also he put out a Pride at London picture of the huge number of these Progress Pride flags being hanging over Regent Street, one of the biggest thoroughfares in the city, saying, today at Pride in London, we'll show the world that love will always triumph over hate. Let's talk about this with Emma Trimble, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Good afternoon to you, Emma.
Good to be with you, Julia.
I'm always fascinated by these protests. I mean, not protests, it's parade. I'm all for everyone having a parade and a carnival. Go for it. Absolutely fill your boots. But it is fascinating how much it does get politicised by people like Sadiq Khan. I'm talking about, this is about love will triumph over hate. I mean, is there a lot of hate and fighting for equality in a fairer London? Is there any evidence that any of the people, you know, coming under that LGBTQI, that they are suffering from inequality?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Julia? I think, you know, just looking at that photo there, I mean, it looks like occupied territory, doesn't it?
It's like a Nuremberg rally, for goodness sake.
When we're talking about, you know, the origin of Pride was about the right to be gay, and the right to be gay is based on same-sex attraction, which is based on sex-based rights. And what you see in that flag there is an inherent contradiction between the LGB and the rest of it.
Yes.
And I think it's always interesting to see this kind of microcosm of the contradictions within intersectionality. Because one of the reasons, of course, why Sadiq Khan would need to turn off his comments is also because him being part of all of this progressive stuff also upsets certain parts of the Muslim community.
Yes.
Intersectionality is a farce. It doesn't work. All of these different identities.
Just explain for people who are sensible and have got jobs and aren't into this work well what intersectionality means.
Well, intersectionality is this idea within what we have come to call woke, but it's a particular progressive left-wing ideology that's based in something called critical theory. And intersectionality is this idea that there is solidarity between all oppressed minorities, and that the more intersections you have, the more oppressed you are. But the reality is that these different identities contradict one another. And we saw this particularly with the kind of crossfire that certain left-wing politicians get themselves in when it comes to supporting LGBT rights or supporting the Muslim community that object to them. If you criticize the Muslim community for objecting to them, then you're Islamophobic. And what you see in that flag and what you see in these pride marches actually is you've seen this shift towards all sorts of things that aren't to do with same-sex attraction. It's all about nudity and kink and general subversion. I mean, even the term queering has come to mean so much more than anything to do with sexuality. I mean, it's just to do with subverting the norms.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's a lot of blue hair and an awful lot of leather and chains. But there we are. When I went to a party in the centre of town, had to walk through the remnants. I mean, there were loads of roads closed. You know, you couldn't get through. But again, people are entitled to have a march or have a big party and a parade and celebrate. Oh, I'm all for it. But this is the thing. It's the claim that somehow this is a parade against hate. I mean, even when it comes down to things like, same-sex marriage, I mean, way more than, 80% of people support same-sex marriage, gay adoption. But there are no rights that gay people don't have equally with straight people. And certainly when you get to all the other issues, I mean, T's, the trans, I mean, my issue has always been LGB is an actual thing. If you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, those are actual real things. The TQIA plus stuff is all just made up, utterly irrelevant nonsense, and it's just an excuse to not have a decent personality or be interesting. I mean, in my view, and again, that flag, the rainbow flag is a flag of, of happiness and celebration. Literally the colours of the rainbow, inclusivity. The trans progress one, this is the one with all you've got the full flag, and then you've got this triangle, got the black triangle, the blue and the pink and the yellow. That's like everybody. I mean, it's basically everybody other than straight white people. We don't get our own flag. We don't get it. I mean, what do they think? They think we've got the England flag and the Union flag, and that's why they hate it. I don't know. But this flag, I mean, to me, this is a divisive flag. This is misogynistic. This is homophobic. This is a flag that celebrates the idea that people are born in the wrong body and that, young gay boys who've been confused about their sexuality, that they should have puberty blockers and try and change their bodies and live as if they were trans. And young lesbians should have to be, are bigots if they don't agree to date a supposed lesbian with a beard. I mean, this is a divisive flag. This should not be being celebrated by our politicians.
Well, quite right. I mean, they like to pretend that this is the triumph of love and inclusivity over hate. But we know that the progressive gender ideology movement has been adamant that it is conversion therapy to do anything other than affirm children, for example, who are experiencing gender dysphoria. But we know that a lot of those young people who start taking cross-sex hormones, who go down the path towards surgery, are gay young people, that actually the transing is a form for many of these vulnerable people, is a form of conversion therapy. And if we're talking about inclusivity, we also need to talk about the fact that these so-called inclusive marchers who are all about love rather than hate